Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another SwansCast podcast. It's been a while, so firstly, I'd like to apologise on the delay in the content, and this is going to be the end of season video, end of season review, if you like. So a bit after the season's finished, but we got there in the end. As you can see, I've got a bit of a new background behind me, so I have actually moved finally my setup, if you like, to my new home, and as I'm sure many people who have experienced moving have. Had in the past, internet sometimes can cause a bit of trouble. And yeah, had a bit of difficulty getting the PC to work for us to be able to record. So that's what the delay is all about. So can only apologise, but hopefully now we're set up, we should be able to get back on it and hopefully improve what we are putting out going into next season. But yeah, getting into today's video then, I'm joined by Lee and Ben. I wanted them both here to review the season as a whole. So welcome back, both of you.
Hi, okay.
How are we doing?
And I know both of you have been busy in your own ways as well. So how are you both doing, Ben? I know still busy in exam season, but coming to the end.
Yeah, mid-exam season, a couple of weeks left to go. Lovely long summer off then.
Yeah, so a good break to chat about some football, I guess. And Lee, what about yourself? How have you been getting on?
Yeah, it's mental at the moment. And obviously moved back to Swansea, so I've been moving as well. And then stag this week and wedding in September. So it's all go at the minute. So yeah.
So we have to record this before the weekend. So we're currently recording it on Tuesday because Lee might not be alive next week.
So, I am worried.
At least, you might be in bed all week, recovering from whatever paces he's put through. I can't really speak too much, obviously, because he hasn't got a clue of what's going on.
I know nothing.
I'm sure we look after him. I mean, if you've got any suggestions for how to make the best stag do for the stag, chuck them down in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm sure we would love to see your ideas on how we can make Lee have the time of his life. But yeah, I'm sure he will enjoy every moment of what's in store this weekend. So yeah, that's our bank holiday weekend. So next week, I'm sure we'll have a couple of stories, perhaps, if we make it anyway. Maybe it'll just be me and Ben and me checking in from the bed somewhere. I don't know. But okay, so the agenda of this week's video, I said end of season review, sort of. We're going to kind of like waffle, I guess, about the season. We'll talk about highs and lows of what we, it's a long season. It felt like a long season anyway. Kind of glad it's over in a way, but we'll talk about the highs and lows of what went on and what kind of sticks out in our memory. And also kind of compare our season expectations to where we finished, because as much as the season afterwards, I think, has felt a bit underwhelming, a bit disappointing, in reality, when we look back at what we said before the season, it isn't that far away from what we were expecting. So maybe there's a bit of a reality check there. However, I don't think anyone kind of expected the context of what happened within the last, 8, 9, 10 months. After that, we're going to look at the player ratings. We're going to rate all of our players. We did do a rating after the transfer window earlier in the season, in the summer, which I didn't look at yet. I don't want to be any sort of biased from our past ratings, because I can't remember what I said with the transfers, to be honest. I think Ben remembers a couple of his, but I can't quite remember mine. So I think if we freshly rate the players after a full season, and next week we can kind of compare what we thought the new guys at least were going to do compared to what they did afterwards. And maybe then we can get a true reflection of whether we are disappointed or not with the transfer window last summer. And then a bit of news. We've got the retained list, a lot to talk about with that, and some new deals and some players that have left. And we're going to have a look at some free transfers around the Championship that early in the transfer window we could potentially be taking a look at for next season. So let's get stuck into it then. So the season didn't end on the best of tones, but it didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Well, I say it didn't matter. It did actually matter. As a result of the last game of the season, we finished 14th instead of 13th, losing to Millwall in probably was a bit of a lackluster way to end the season, Lee. I know you went down to that one. So what are your thoughts on? We don't need to delve into the detail of the match, but just the fact of how it ended.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm struggling to remember like the proper details of the game, but I just remember it being a proper dead rubber. Just a proper end of season. Like you're hoping for at the end of the season, you want to see the team just kind of let loose a bit, and you might get like a 4-3 or something ridiculous. But I remember it being just a bit of a just a bit of a proper dead rubber. No real urgency in either side really. And then Millwall just seemed to, they kind of sat back a bit and they took their chance. So it was just a bit of a boring end of season game really, and probably summed up the season.
Millwall actually ended the season really well. They had 5 wins in the last 5, so good end of the season for them. They just got 13th ahead of us, broke us and Cardiff apart from being next to each other in the league table. What are your thoughts on how we ended the season, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, it did sort of run out of steam right at the end. When we were safe, there was a whole lot of relief. And then as soon as we sort of felt that relief, we just took our foot off the gas. As Lee said, the last game against Millwall was a bit of a dead rubber. It was unfortunate. I think we were speaking on the last pod about Matt Grimes and penalties. He's finally missed one now. So that 100% record off the penalty spot is gone. And it weren't a great pen. It was one of those ones you hope the keeper would save if he went the right way. And yeah, a couple of weeks ago now, and I can't even remember the goal at this point. I'm not going to lie to you, but they probably deserved it at the end of the day. I would say Millwall probably across the 90 minutes sustained the highest amount of pressure. Yeah, just as glad it's done, I think, is the overall feeling now, isn't it?
Yeah. So you're saying poor save?
The Grimes penalty.
Sorry, you're saying poor penalty, not good save.
I mean, it was in between the corner and middle of the goal, and it was perfect height. So if the keeper's going to dive that way, chances are he's going to get something on it.
Yeah. I did raise concerns about him going top middle so often recently, and then he's changed it up and missed. So maybe it's my fault.
Yeah, I thought it was a bad penalty. Actually, I forgot about that. I forgot about the missed penalty, but yeah, not one of his best because he did. He was scoring good penalties as well when he scored against Norwich as well, didn't he, the week before?
Well, every penalty he's ever taken up until that point was high into one of the corners of the roof of the net, pretty much. Keeper wouldn't get anywhere near it, even if he dived the right way. So
yeah, they've always been nicely struck, yeah, like you said. And then I didn't look back at the penalty for a couple of days after, and I saw it, and I was surprised where he actually put it because I couldn't see from where I was sitting where, in like sort of relation to the goal he puts it. But I was quite surprised. Yeah, like you said, it wasn't high, it wasn't in the corner. It was just in the perfect position for the keeper to save. So a bit out of character for his penalty.
I think there's an element of someone who takes penalties over a duration. He's had a few lately, hasn't he, of course. Do you think there's an element of you overthink, I've done this a few times now and need to change it up, and then because you're thinking that there and then, you don't get any end product because you're just overthinking what you're kind of going to do?
They're human beings at the end of the day. You stick any man in front or woman in front of a ball, take a penalty over and over again. Eventually, they're going to hit a poor one. They're not going to connect with it the way they want to. But all I'd say is this regular technique of high, either corner or down the middle, it takes some saving because how often do you see keepers dive high for a pen? They always dive low, don't they?
Yeah, well, it's disappointing. Yeah. We'll see what happens on the next one, whether he remains penalty taker next season.
I hope he does, though. I think it could be a case of overthinking. Like we said, I think even though he's only taken a couple this season, we know that he likes to go high. So maybe he's thinking, I know I've taken a couple of penalties now where I've gone high and middle. Maybe I better mix it up because the keepers do their homework, and maybe he's just like you said, overthought it, or like he's not connected with it. So yeah, I hope that one doesn't mean that someone else takes him.
Yeah, and high middle, and one of them hit the crossbar and went in as well. So I wonder if he was kind of coached out of it as well. But maybe you never know. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes and what happens in the moment as well. It is a high pressure situation. I guess all you can ask for is he bounces back on the next one if he is still on it. Messi and Ronaldo both have missed penalties in their career, so it's not end of the world to miss one. Just bounce back next time, I guess. But yeah, we're not going to reflect too much on the Millwall game. It's to be honest, like I was kind of not even bothered about revisiting it afterwards because the season ended on that note, and I'm glad the season's done. Let's move on to what's ahead, but we will reflect on the season as a whole. Obviously went through a bit of change, started with a new manager in Michael Duff. That didn't quite work out. Ended it up with a spell of interim manager with Alan Sheehan before Luke Williams was appointed, and it kind of has gone 360 in 12 months in terms of the play style. Tried to go in a different direction, but we completely 180'd back to where we were, or at least near enough where we are now, in a case of like building again to be where we kind of were 12 months ago. So let's talk about the season as a whole, the highs and lows. Let's start off with the positives. What highs can you both remember from the season?
Well, the home South Wales derby win is the first immediate one that comes to mind, isn't it? Jamal Lowe last-minute goal to secure the victory.
Yeah, no double this season, but no double for them either.
Yeah, I feel like in a weird way, this one meant even more, just because I feel like the relief of not having the double done over you is almost more important or more elating than doing the double, since we've done it already now. We've never
You mean doing it
experienced that.
again rather than the first time? I don't
Yeah,
think anything's going to beat the first one.
yeah, the first time, but then now, as you say, we've experienced that, but we've never experienced Cardiff doing the double over us. I don't ever want to experience that.
So that's like what you've got to hold on to now. That's the only thing you can kind of like, when that happens, if that happens, it kind of, all of that extra edge is kind of lost. It's still going to be a massive game, isn't it? But just that extra stat that is very, very, well, in the amount of years that derby has been a thing, the fact that it still exists already is crazy. So it's just something so important, I think, to hold on to. Obviously, we broke the duck on both sides 2 years ago. I believe it was the only derby left in the country that hadn't had either team do the double when we could sort of secured that. So the fact that Cardiff still haven't managed to do one themselves, the longer we can keep that the case, I think, the longer we get bragging rights for, even if we don't win all the games.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you then, Lee? Any highs from the season that stick out?
To be honest, I'm struggling. I think that's the clear standout, isn't it? The Cardiff win, because that's probably our best performance of the season. We had a couple of good wins in there. The 4-0 against Huddersfield away was a nice one. I know, like, we were probably safe by then. Maybe they left the shackles off a bit. That was a nice win, and the Rushworth ball to Timon. That's probably one of the best moments of the season as well. The way he brings that down. To be honest, they are probably the two best wins, aren't they, this season? There's a couple of pockets in there, but yeah, it'll be the Cardiff derby. I think is it just me, or is it sometimes becoming a bit of a frustration? Obviously, I'd never trade losing to Cardiff, but like, why can't we seem to replicate that performance for the rest of the season? Because normally, in seasons gone by, we'd have gone on after the Cardiff win, and it kind of gave us a boost. But it was kind of win the derby, and then we kind of just settled back into like flat performances after that. So it's a bit of a weird dynamic, but I wouldn't have separated the rest. I wouldn't have traded the rest of the season to lose that game. That was brilliant that day.
Yeah, you are right, and I do agree with you that I think, like, if you can get up for that, why can't you get up for any other game? Or at least to the same extent. But then at the same time, I think we're all hypocrites saying that, because I think as fans, we kind of expect a little bit more from the performance on that day. You expect them to be given that extra 10%. You expect them to put in the bigger tackles. You expect that. When you don't see that, you come out of that game criticising the fact that they didn't put that extra passion into what is the biggest game in the club's, like, sort of the biggest derby, like, for example, for us anyway. So yeah, I don't know what the answer is really.
No, I totally agree. I think, like, you'd always have the team give the extra 10-15% in the derby game. That's a given. But and I actually think like that derby in particular, because you were saying about the importance of it and not having the double, and I think the stick that we had after the first one, even though we'd won 4 in a row and then lost one, just the amount of like stick we had, it just seemed to be like so much more than normal. So and then I think that the atmosphere in that derby this season at home was probably the best I've experienced in ages. I can't remember the last time the stadium was rocking that much for that game. It was amazing. So yeah, I definitely would want. But what I'm saying is the massive difference between, obviously you'd have an extra performance in the derby. That's what we're asking for. But it was such a big drop off afterwards. When normally they push on, but I can't really complain.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? I think if you just compare it to like a regular day job, maybe you have a tough deadline, you got to meet in work, you push yourself an extra a mile then, but then you burn yourself out and you can't sustain it. We're not professional footballers. I don't know what it's like. What do they do differently to give that sort of performance in a high stakes game? And then what does it look like for the rest of the week and months to come? I don't know. But I do mean, because normally Cardiff have been kind to us in recent years. We're on a bad run of form. We win the derby and it reignites our season a bit, doesn't it? Like you say, this season, for whatever reason, the opposite happened.
Yeah, and I think it could be that was our season essentially, wasn't it? To make sure that we didn't lose that game. So it was almost a relief this year, wasn't it? Winning that game, it was almost kind of a a relief. I know we almost got sucked into a relegation battle, but not looking at it in hindsight, not quite. We never quite really got sucked proper in, did we? So I think probably beating Cardiff there, then that gave us an extra 3 points, which pushed us up a little bit further. It was probably just more of a relief. I mean, we saw the celebrations afterwards, and it's always an emotional performance. They always bring in the chef or someone, don't they, to do the talk. And like you said, it might have just been the season was kind of done after that, wasn't it?
Yeah, kind of fizzled out. I mean, we did pick up a little bit towards the end, but yeah, it wasn't really much to play for other than securing championship status, which after the Cardiff game we still hadn't. But when that was done, I guess the season definitely was finished. Highs for me then. I quite enjoyed going Plymouth away. I thought that was a good away day. Probably one that sticks out for me. First time I've been there, I thought the ground was decent. I thought they had decent sort of hospitality around the ground. And it was a good game of football, probably. I would say Michael Duff's best game. Yeah. One of two of his best games, that and the Norwich at home maybe is the other one. But yeah, that was a case of what could have been in terms of if he managed to sustain what they performed in that match. And obviously, for that one specifically, I think Morgan Whittaker got quite a bit of stick, which perhaps came back to haunt us later in the season. But yeah, I did enjoy that one. I don't know if any of you two, obviously I know you two didn't come with me to that one, but if you can remember much of it.
I watched it. Yeah, it was a good counter-attacking display from what I can remember of it. Probably the nicest football I remember seeing under Michael Duff, and it was short-lived, as you pointed out, unfortunately.
Yeah. Josh Key's goal was pretty good in that one.
Was it the Patterson ball, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. Oh, and Ollie Cooper scored a nice goal in that game as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, after coming on, came on with a little bit of point to prove, and then weren't able to do that for the next couple of weeks afterwards. So standard. But yeah, Josh Key obviously being from Exeter, there's a little bit more of an edge there as well for him scoring against Plymouth. So I think that was a big one for him, and I think he enjoyed that as well. And obviously Mac Grimes as well. He used to play there, so I'm sure he enjoyed the victory over their past rivals. What about lows then, and maybe where it went wrong? Have we got anything that we want to pinpoint as specifics here? I know there's a lot that could be said, but we haven't got time perhaps to chat about all of it. So let's just try and handpick something out about something that we think had a big impact on where the season kind of went wrong. And I guess one or two of them stating the obvious, but that's what we're here to discuss. So Ben, do you want to go first?
There was a 3-week spell where Michael Duff just could not handle an interview to save his life. And I feel like his relationship with the fan became irreparable as a result. The main comment being the derby's just another 3 points. Then there was the whole thing of he was commuting 2 and a bit, 3 hours each day because he didn't want to live here. It was, I don't care if the fans like me, may have been one of them along the way. There was probably a couple others, and it got to the point where after the Cardiff comment, everything he was saying was getting like overanalyzed as a result.
He was getting asked stuff because it was getting clicks, I think, in the end, and he wasn't helping himself when it came to what he was saying to minimize that spotlight.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, it was one of those ones where you're on a losing streak, so it doesn't matter what you say in an interview, nothing's going to be taken well. So that was probably the worst point of the season for me anyway. We were 23rd in the table.
Yeah, because we were analysing his performance earlier in the season, comparing it against the other managers and their starts to the season and stuff. And when he did manage to pick up a couple of wins against Plymouth and Norwich and them, it wasn't too different to a lot of the other guys that come before him. And I think we expected a bit of a transition and a bit of a poor start to the season, which we had. A little bit more poor than perhaps what we would have liked. But there were some positives in some of the draws he picked up early doors. You know, we drew against Coventry and Birmingham and stuff like that. And at the time, Birmingham were a good team before they made their howler of a decision. And Coventry, you know, they were knocking on the doors to the playoffs much of the season after finishing there last year. So they were bad results. It just didn't seem to click into gear quick enough thereafter. And I think he struggled with any of the pressure that came with that. You know, the searching for the first win thing, I think, didn't help. And then he went into his press conferences and kind of went deeper down the hole. It's like he had a spade and just kept digging a little bit. I've said many times, I personally don't think the appointment was as bad as what it seems thereafter, because all of these contributing factors that we're talking about now are the reasons why we ended up in a position that we are in and the reason why he got sacked. And it just didn't work out. And I'm not saying that isn't the case, but I don't think it couldn't have worked out. I think there was definitely plenty of signs and we saw plenty of things to show that it could have worked. I think one or two of them games that was a draw. If you get a win out of those two, we were in a much different position, and you would never go sacked when you got sacked, and you never know what would have come afterwards. Because we compared, and in Luke Williams' first 10, 15 games or so, he got a lot of the same results against a lot of the same teams that Michael Duff did. But there was different energy and different things happening around that kind of bought him more time and allowed him to build on his style and get a relationship with the club and the fans. And I think that's what was important to it. And unfortunately, that's what the missing jigsaw piece was. I do feel for Duff. I think, he's got a new job now in Huddersfield, hasn't he? So hopefully good luck to him there. I'm sure he will actually be a good fit there. I think it will probably work quite well. But he just didn't help himself. And I think ultimately cost himself a job. But I think all managers need to go through a learning experience. We always pluck these success stories out from everywhere, it seems, or have done in recent years. And it was only time before one of them didn't work quite as well as what we've been used to. And I think that's what maybe caught us off more than anything. I don't think we would have gone down with him, honestly. I don't think we would have finished actually that much worse off than where we finished now. But there's obviously other things that the fan base and the board and the club were unhappy with, and it didn't just suit. So, 14th place finish when you've got that disharmony and unhappiness is not as enjoyable as perhaps what you had under maybe the previous manager, where a 15th place finish, but everyone actually is on board and likes what's going on. I say everyone, the majority, just feels different, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think a lot of people will just sort of say now, that was, Duff was one of the worst managers we've ever had, and it was a terrible time and all that. But I don't know, personally, I don't see it like that. I think you're right. I think at the time it probably was a decent appointment, but I think it was probably too much of a transition than that the club was ready for. And when I say the club, I mean fans, players, everything. I think it just nobody was ready for it. Duff didn't help himself, like we said, stuff he would say in the press conferences, and I just think it just made for bad feeling. And I probably came across then, into the squad as well. By the time he got sacked, it seemed like, some of the comments from players as well, like Grimes and stuff. Some of their interviews didn't seem quite right, and I think once that happens, I think it's over, no matter what. So I have no doubt he'll probably go to Huddersfield now and do a good job. I don't think he's a bad manager. Just think it just didn't work for us.
I do find it interesting you mentioned Grimes, because maybe by the end, but he did also sign a new contract under Duff, which nobody was expecting at the time, especially with the speculation that was around him the last time he signed a new deal. That came out of the blue, and he wouldn't have done that if he didn't think to some capacity that we were going in the right direction. He didn't need to sign a new contract at that time. It wasn't like he was nearing expiry. So that for me was a positive sign at the time, that it wasn't maybe as behind the scenes wasn't as bad as what it seemed, but things can change, obviously. And I do think one of the things I didn't mention, but I do think a big factor of it was how popular the style Russell Martin brought was, with its comparisons to our historic successful Swansea way, and the fan base not wanting or being able to deal with that not being there anymore. And obviously that was kind of addressed to Michael Duff in press conferences. And I understand why maybe he did react the way he did when that was brought to him, and he just brushed Russell Martin off, didn't he? And was like, yeah, but he didn't score goals, basically, or whatever he said. He brushed it off. Because at the end of the day, you want to be considered your own man and stop comparing me to what was here before. This is going to be different. It's going to be my way. Probably did not say it the best way. Not saying that he did. But I just think whoever took the reins after Martin, unless you were doing the same job as what he was doing, was always going to find it tough.
Yeah, I think it could have been different. This is one of them. It could have been a lot different if he got a win earlier on, if he got a win early doors, and maybe they picked up a little bit more momentum. That spell he had, though, like you said, with the Plymouth game, they were playing some good stuff at the time. They looked like a really different side.
That
and then
Norwich
I think we went
game.
I can't remember if I'm right, but I think we went into the international break then after the Plymouth game, and then it kind of didn't pick up again after that. That kind of stopped the momentum a bit. So I think given time, it might have worked, but it was a collection of things that went wrong at the time, and then it was done.
Just to revisit that, after the Plymouth game, we had Leicester at home, where everyone credited that performance as actually being really good, even though we lost. Then the disappointing one was losing to Watford at home, where we had a goal disallowed, so we would have been 1-0 up. Little margins like that, as much as it is what it is, it evens out over the season. For Michael Duff, if that's a 1-0 scrappy win instead of a 1-0 scrappy loss, that's then 5 wins in 6. But instead, you have a disappointing loss to Watford to deal with. We went away and then had a good win against Blackburn, who at the time were in good form. And then you had the draw at Sunderland at home, where we had a red card. A loss to Ipswich, 3-2, which is not a bad performance. We also had a red card in that one. Draw against Hull. I think that was disappointing because we had a 2-goal lead. But reflecting on it, looking at how the season's ended with these teams and where they finished, it's not as bad as what we thought at the time. Personally, I think looking back, the next one then was Leeds, 3-1 defeat to Leeds. So, and if you look at the results we had against those teams under Luke Williams, it was the same story. That's what I was trying to say, I guess. But I'm not here to then defend Michael Duff. The one after Leeds was the draw against Huddersfield that got him sacked. So I do think that 5-game run before he got sacked was harsh to be a judge of, especially with 4 of them teams or 3 of them teams finishing in the top 3 positions in the league. And Hull also just missing out on playoffs. And they were 4 of his last 5 games.
I think what you've just said there, though, with how similar the results were for Luke Williams and Michael Duff, sort of emphasises how important the style of play is to the fan base. And you could say we're spoilt, which we probably are, but going right back to Roberto Martinez all the way through till now, for the most part, we've been treated to brilliant football along the way, far better than most other clubs of our stature really have had. So then when you have this sudden shift towards a more negative style of play, we just weren't taking it. Sometimes under Russell Martin, as you've said, we finished 15th in one of his seasons, or I believe, or maybe in 14th. The style of play was there right the way throughout. So even though we weren't always getting the results, we were willing to accept it and buy into it. But when we weren't seeing any progression on the pitch in terms of how we were playing, but we were still getting these poor results, you lose the fan base really quickly at Swansea. So it just goes to show it was probably a poor decision from the start, which I think hopefully the people higher up in the club realise now. The first thing they'll look for in a manager's style of play.
I do kind of agree with you, but then again, was it that bad? When you look at you are not playing this pretty football, that's losing your games because you've been a bit naive. I think that's what we were saying in Luke Williams' first few games. But we scored first against Leicester, and we were holding on quite well under Michael Duff in that game. I think they scored maybe on the brink of half time, and then they kind of went away and won it in the second half. But I remember after that game, everyone was positive about what they saw on the pitch on that game specifically. I don't think a 3-2 defeat away at Ipswich can be seen as that negative either.
No, they should have been 8-0 up in the first half in that Ipswich game, though. I remember that.
Oh yeah, fair enough. But that's maybe
I know what you're saying.
There's issues with the defence. I think there's been issues with the defence all season, and they didn't stop for me, at least. I think they got it a little bit better in the last few games of the season, but I think that's still a cause for concern going forward for us as our defence. That was the issue. I think we discussed it before, didn't we? In terms of his play style, I don't necessarily think it was the negativity of the style of play. I think he couldn't execute what he wanted to do because he could not get on top of the defence. I think we did highlight that earlier in the season, that we thought he was brought in to shore up the defence, maybe play a little bit less expansive than Russell Martin, but his style of football should have still been an exciting style to an extent, not maybe as much as what Martin provided, but if you look at what Barnsley did this season before, it wasn't a negative, boring style of football. It was quite exciting, fast-paced, high-pressing, and we just saw elements of it spread out, and I think part of the reason for that was he could not get on top of the defence, and I can't stick up for him on that because that probably was his number one priority and number one job. And I guess what I'm kind of highlighting, looking at these results and looking at these past near misses, is if he did fix that problem, he probably wasn't that far away from having a decent season, because we still had the defence as an issue under Luke Williams, But as we said earlier, he bought himself time because of what he was doing, what he was trying to do. And I think fans and the board appreciated that more. I do understand it. I'm just looking at the bigger picture of why the decision was made to bring him in. And I do think wrong place, wrong time, maybe. I do feel a bit for him. I'm not saying I regret that he was sacked, but it could have been different, I think.
I guess my counterpoint to that is even at Barnsley, when we talk about exciting style of football, yeah, there probably was an energetic nature to that Barnsley team, but it wasn't the Swansea way. Not that it should be expected to be at Barnsley. But I guess what I'm saying is I don't think Michael Duff was ever going to be the sort of manager to come in, have us having the fullbacks overlapping, leave us a bit exposed. We can say he's naive, but it's what the fans want, I suppose. Heavy possession football, guess what we're used to, higher tempo. I mean, I think also he lost everyone in the Cardiff game, didn't we? I think our first meaningful shot was after going 2-0 down late in the second half. It goes to show how important the derby is as well. The comments leading up to it and then the performance on the pitch. I feel like, how he loses the entire fan base in a game, I don't know, but it shows the power of the South Wales derby.
I'm not going to try and I tried to defend him, but I wouldn't try and defend that performance. That's what I draw the line.
I think like we're kind of saying the same thing, and it's a combination of things. Like you said, the results, looking at them on paper, they don't seem that bad, but then, like you said, because of other things like the comments he'd made, and I think it was, while I don't think it was totally negative, it was probably negative compared to what we're used to, like you're saying, Ben, where the fans want a certain style of football, so any change in that is probably magnified. And I think it was just a combination of everything. On the Cardiff game as well, I know it sounds like a rubbish excuse, but it came really early in the season when we were on when we are in a bit of a transition. Now, normally we play them in like the October time, which if we had done this season was in that run when we'd won like 4 games in a row. And, and again, it might not have ever worked out with Duff, but, if we played Cardiff in that spell, beating them under Duff, that might have been just a totally different game altogether,
Could have changed the season.
It is what it is, though, and like, you're right, that losing the game, like in the manner we lost it, and the comments, I think he never recovered from that. I think that was it after that.
I do agree with you, Ben, and what you're saying about the Swansea way, and he was never going to come in and do that. 100% agree. And I think this is the question, which is a different question to us. It's not really about Michael Duff, really, but it's about, is the Swansea way good or bad for the future of the club? And I think it says sometimes it holds us back just as much as it is nice to watch. I'm not saying that we can never find success with it again, but I also think that we shouldn't only expect that as a way to find success, because I think sometimes you've got to evolve. And I think that's what they tried to do. Maybe it wasn't the right time and the fans were not ready for it. And the combination of all of that is what happened and what we ended up seeing. And I think Michael Duff kind of ended up being the fall guy of that, maybe we'll try something else. But whether the club's not ready, the fans are not ready, whether it will ever be the case that they're ready for that, only time will tell. And look, it looks like Luke Williams has kind of brought it back to an extent, and we'll see if he's successful with it next year. We'll see how Southampton get on in the playoffs as well. But the argument to how the Swansea way was going to be the way forward and how Russell Martin was going to be the one to do it was that if we backed him, he would have got it done. Didn't get it done this time, did he? With the biggest budget, with the best players, managed to just fall at the final hurdle, and he probably shouldn't have, considering the run they went on as well.
I think just touching on how the Swansea way maybe needed to evolve with Michael Duff, I feel like it probably has in the last decade. I feel like it's had to because of how football's evolved as well. You can track it right back to Roberto Martinez. That was basically tiki-taka football in League One. That wouldn't be possible now. But Brendan Rodgers' football, that was sometimes as simple as just the fullbacks overlapping both at the same time. That was seen as new at the time, which is very common nowadays. And then moved on to Graham Potter. And you look at Graham Potter's football compared to Martinez, then they're not really the same. I guess the Swansea way is just, to a fan, does it look good? Does it excite you? Is it
No, I understand that.
I don't know if it's really the same thing as it used to be. But I feel like as soon as we shift away into what Michael Duff would have been looking to do, for me, then that isn't the Swansea way anymore. And then you saw that in terms of bums on seats. So when we had Russell Martin there and we had Michael Duff there, positioning the table-wise, it wasn't too dissimilar. But because of what was being shown to the fans, people weren't turning up anymore. That's concerning now. The season ticket numbers are down, probably off the back of a poor season, people losing faith in the direction we're going. I feel like it's risky for a club of our size to play with the fans' mentality in that way, because at the end of the day, the revenue streams for the Swans isn't good because of our fan base anyway. So if that's dropping even further now because we're trying to change who we are, I feel like it's a needless risk personally.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm not saying Michael Duff's Swansea way was like not right. I just think that look at Ipswich and Leeds and how they were successful this season. Like passing football in general, if that's our core mentality of what the Swansea way can be, it doesn't mean you need to not pass and play nice football, but do we need to be searching for the 60-70% just to, because that's the Swansea way. However you go about it, whether it's like how Roberto Martinez, Brendan Rodgers, Graham Potter, or Russell Martin searched for those high quantities of possession, like, is that the most effective way to operate within what budget we have right now? Yes or no is whatever the answer is, right? If you're happy for the answer to be yes, but then it doesn't bring as much success as what could otherwise, then okay, whatever. I just think there's a conversation around, is the rigidness of that mentality and the fact that the fan base will not accept a change from it actually holding the club back. I think there's definitely a conversation around that. Now, whether or not the financial repercussions of it, like you said, they probably are true. Take all that away from it, like in terms of the reality of what happens on the pitch. I just think personally, the fact that we will probably never get over that as a fan base might be one of the detriments to where the club could go. But that's fine. If that's what our identity is, then we want to own that, and that's what we want to take pride in, then okay, that's fine. I just don't know whether we'll always find the best success searching for that ethos. I think we led by example the first time, and now we're chasing because we're kind of trying to do what we did again. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And as you say, we're the ones chasing now. So it's a case of how do you be different? And honestly, who knows? That's the issue now. I feel like football's now moved on to a point where we're in such a financial black hole as a league, as a pyramid. It's difficult to take risks now. It's difficult to be different because as soon as you slip down divisions, the financial repercussions. I mean, I'll be interested to see what happens. Like Birmingham now, for example, new owners. But that's not what they would have been intending.
It started off well, didn't they? But then it kind of went down quite quickly.
That's like you're right though, because looking at Birmingham is quite scary. Because I mean, we might come on to it, but like bottom pack, that could have been anyone. It could have been us. Blackburn were lucky. There were some big teams there that could have gone, and Birmingham going into League One is going to be massive, isn't it? But I think we were lucky there. I think you're right. We can't kind of. It is very, very risky to overhaul what we're doing in a short space of time now. I think it is risky, but I've commented on it in the past. I think possession football, I think the game has kind of moved on a little bit from that, like having 60-70% possession. Because the best team I've seen all season, and I know like we had some big defeats against like Southampton and Leeds, but the best team I saw was Ipswich. I've never seen a team attack like that in years. They just attacked in numbers and they were direct. I know it wasn't Route 1, but they were so dangerous. And that was just so refreshing to see because it was a team that was doing something different and they struck gold. Now, like we said, chasing that is risky, but it's just where do we, how far do we go in changing it? Because, like you say,
but they were playing Mick McCarthy ball a few seasons ago, and now they've gone with someone that plays this completely different, like, attack-focused style of play. And what my main point of all of this, right, isn't to say Michael Duff was the answer to it. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I understand why the board went that direction and tried it. Whether it's Michael Duff, whether it was someone else, maybe it could have been, Declan McKenna, but or that's what they were trying to discover is another one of those, and it didn't work. Okay, I get it, like fair, but I think that's where that decision came from. Is what I'm kind of trying to say. I'm not saying it's Duff. Should have been Duff. Should have worked. Should have given time. He was the one that we have to talk about. So that's why I'm using his season as an example for what I'm saying. But the bigger picture of it all, I think that's where it came from. And yeah, you add in the other complicated factors like the data-driven approach, and it gets a bit messy. But I think it came from a good place in regards to what they were trying to do. And maybe we always give it, as a fan base, a bit too much of a scrutiny. I think there's far worse examples in the league of where scrutiny to that level should be exemplified, and that's like the Birmingham, like you mentioned. We didn't do anything that drastic, not this time anyway. Maybe we've done that before with Bob Bradley situation, but not this time. That's all I'm trying to say, really. And I don't think they'll go and do it again, because I think this whole season will have scared them off it. And, they came out, made those statements, we learned from mistakes, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But, like, I'm just a bit worried. Like, have we now put ourselves into a funnel of we're only going to go down this one style of play and down this one route? And one day we might strike gold with them. We might get the right manager who does manage to make it work. But I do think it's a much more difficult style of play to get right now, and the quality play you need to bring in to do it is harder to find, sometimes can cost more, but we've kind of backed ourselves into that corner. That's what we're going to do. So can we make it work? I hope so. I really hope so. But it also wouldn't surprise me if we can't. That's kind of all I'm saying, really. But it will be interesting to see where it goes. Luke Williams, I think he's in a good place to make it work. Okay, so like as similar as Russell Martin as he can be, just curious to see over a full season whether we'll see the same flaws, the same themes, and then end up fizzling out to a 10th place finish or something.
One last thing I'd like to say, as you use Ipswich as an example, and to be honest, Ipswich sort of shows a perfect example of both sides of the coin. So we talk about how they were playing Mick McCarthy football, and they made that switch to a more progressive style, changed the way they recruited. They made that switch in our first season in the Championship after we got relegated. They brought in Paul Hurst as manager, and they finished dead last and dropped down to League One. That's the risk that they take. But then obviously they dropped down a division. They switched the ideology about, and then the plan did come off with time. They've had double promotion, now they're in the Premier League. Yeah. So it's like, if we want to take that chance and switch who we are entirely, we can't do it and then backtrack and sack the guy that we're changing to in 3 months. They had to make that decision.
Yeah. That's what it was. If you're going to do it, you back him, and you say this is what we're doing. The communication from the club, perhaps, if that's what they were trying to do, is change things up a bit. Maybe that they didn't do good enough as a club there, and they didn't back Michael Duff enough. So maybe made his job harder, made his interviews harder, and all the rest of it that came with that. And again, I don't know if we need a full identity switch. I just think the Swansea way as we know it, let's add strings to the bow. You said already we kind of have in some ways, but okay, maybe possession isn't as high of a priority as it used to be in the Swansea way, but free flow and attack in football is. So we might defend for a little bit longer sometimes, but when we do get the ball, we're electric. We're always get an opportunity. We get a shot away nearly every time we're in the final third. Quite often, I think what we find with what we're doing at the moment is we have all the ball, we don't create chances, we don't get shots away.
Yeah.
And I find that just as frustrating, or if not more frustrating, as the you get the highs where you're all over the opposition and it's really exciting and nice to watch. But those are lows of where you're all over the opposition with the ball, but nothing's happening, I think is very difficult to watch. And we seem to get a lot of them in amongst this play style all the way through Russell Martin's period here as well. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see what can change. Luke Williams, if he gets his players in, he said his priority was bringing more goals and more attack compared to what we saw with Russell Martin. So I've yet to see that, but he hasn't had any transfer window really to get that sorted. So,
and equally, if you'd given Luke Williams, Joel Perreault, and Michael Obafemi, for example.
We talked about this. This is overlooked, isn't it? I mean, when you take Perreault out of that team, we lost, a 20-goal striker 2 seasons in a row. That was a massive factor as well, because the amount of times, even if we were having a poor game where we had possession, we weren't creating much, he could score from nothing. That was a massive factor. We probably lost quite a few points there when you lose a player like that. But I mean, we can talk about it forever. It's probably a wider thing to talk about. But I think the way that we have been playing, the kind of, and I'm talking about over the last couple of seasons now, playing that 60-70% possession. If you're not creating chances, it's very easy to play against. There's so many times, even under Luke Williams this year, when he's come in, I look at like QPR at home when I think we had about 70% possession in that game, and then they just had one chance. We lost 1-0.
Plymouth at home.
Plymouth at home, and it's been a theme like under Russell Martin as well. We had so much ball, and then not creating anything. It's very slow, very slow, very slow. Nothing happens, and then teams only need one opportunity. They attack with numbers, and they look dangerous, and they look like they could score every time they get forward. So yeah, I think it's just finding that balance. If we want to play possession football, it's got to be I think it's got to be tailored a little bit, like Ben was saying earlier. Like we've gone from, even though we've got possession football, it has changed over a long period of time.
Yeah.
I think we need to find kind of a bit of a balance now, and we'll have to just see how Luke Williams takes it forward.
The reintroduction of wingers did work well. It was a shame to lose Placheta when we did. Ronald perhaps was a little bit too over-relied on. So especially when Placheta was lost. Maybe that's why he dipped a bit because he was just, let's always go down his wing. Maybe when we get a couple of wingers in the team, Ginnelli's back potentially.
Ginnelli's is the big one if they can get him fit again. And
he can look a bit better next year with the chance creation. But you mentioned Perot and Obafemi going. I think an underrated factor in assists is Manning's removal from the squad, of the fact that he left. Tymon stepped up, I think, second half of the season, maybe to fill that void, but he wasn't there. He definitely wasn't there for Duff in the same capacity as what he's shown later on. And also injuries as well with quite a few of our players. But also, right, this is the one that I think we miss a lot more than people give it credit for. And obviously rocked the season on the eve of the first game. And that's Cham. And people say, we don't miss Cham. He hardly played, he didn't start, he was, he didn't care, whatever. His stats for someone that barely started were very good. It was, he was in the top 3 for goal scorers and he was in the top 3 for assists, yeah. Someone that didn't really start that often last season especially, very good. And we did not have anyone on the bench that could do that job. Yeah, when we needed someone else. Ollie Cooper was the one perhaps coming off the bench. He didn't have the best season. But Cham put in, I think it was like 8 goals last season.
Yeah,
and
he
like
scored
6
some goals
assists.
in some big spots, and Cham did sometimes he'd come on and score for the bench.
Yeah,
but we lost our 3 top goal scorers last season because we lost 8 goals, Manning and Cham.
Exactly, 8 goals from someone who's predominantly on the bench. That's a good, and someone that's not a striker as well. Let's bear in mind, it's not 8 goals from your second striker. That's 8 goals from your second choice centre attacking midfielder, essentially. Although he didn't play that role under Martin, he played centre midfield or perhaps wide forward sometimes if they switched it up. So that's an underrated thing that kind of rocked our season because also Jamie Patterson was leaving by all accounts. And then he was shoved in to start that first game of the season. And he's had a good year. He's had a good year. But in terms of what Duff wanted, he obviously wanted Cham. He was preparing all pre-season for Cham in that position. And then he just didn't have him the night before the first game of the season. So, and we didn't replace that either. We did not replace that. We didn't get anyone in to do that job. We just kept Jamie Patterson. Don't know if there was reasons why he was leaving, if it was Duff's decision or mutual or whatever, and what happened there. But things changed, didn't they? And I think that did have a bigger impact than we give it credit for.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't Duff's decision. I think Duff thought he was starting on the Saturday and then got a phone call that he was at Heathrow or whatever airport he was flying from. So no, that was toys out of the pram moment. That was.
Oh no, I mean Jamie Patterson potentially leaving.
Sorry. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I mean, there's always been talk of Patterson leaving. Whether he's
limbo now, isn't it?
I don't know. I mean, it's not done and dusted because we're still in talks of him. There could be a case of he's waiting to see, does he have a better offer on the table from elsewhere? This is the sort of thing you don't want to drag on through the summer, though. You just want an answer.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to Jamie Patterson. I think that's a good place to end the season review, or at least we talked about a lot of themes there. There's a lot more we could talk about. We've got all summer to do it, not really much action. Wales are not in the Euros, so there's nothing to distract us on the international football front. We're going to hear all about England for the next couple of weeks, that's for sure.
I think just before we end the season review, I think just going back to Birmingham, I think we were so lucky that we didn't get dragged into that. We had some big wins randomly. The Cardiff one being one, beating Hull away was a random one. Winning away, that was massive.
Sheehan also did a good job steadying the ship. Between
that
West
one
Brom
and then
at home was a
West
good
Brom
win.
1-0.
Yeah, that was a big win on New Year's Day. That was so there was a couple of wins sneaked in there at vital times, which kind of kept us out of that bottom pack. So yeah, we got to be careful going into next year.
Yeah, big summer ahead again. Obviously, we had one last season. Just to round up, we've spoke a lot about Luke Williams, the impact that he's had since he's come in already in recent weeks. So all them teams will kind of, we still think those things, I guess. But it's to be continued, isn't it, going into next season? We don't know what the summer's going to look like. We can talk about the retained list today. So we kind of know the squad he's got to work with and the loans that are finished and all the rest of it. And we'll get to that. But we're going to rank the players first on their season. But before we do that, just to run through what happened at the end of the championship. So Swansea finished 14th. We had 57 points. Now, the thing I was saying a couple of weeks ago was that Russell Martin finished 15th in his first year. He did finish on a couple more points, but, in a season of turbulence, this is what I'm saying about, like, the perspective, where are we? Have we gone backwards? Have we stagnated? What is it? I'm not sure. A lot of change this season, so it's hard to put your finger on it. I think next season might be a telling one. See what direction we're going in, because at the moment it is down. If it can change next year, hopefully we can say that it's not a trend. I think if we finish lower again next year, we're in a bit of a negative trend. But anyway, in terms of the top six, obviously Leicester won the league technically on the last game of the season. Ipswich closely behind them on 96 points. Leicester winning on 97. They finished second. Do you think it's fair to say Leicester nearly bottled it? Do you think Ipswich should have done better in the last 5 games? They had 3 draws in the last 5. Do you think they'd be thinking missed opportunity, or are they just buzzing to finish second?
Yeah, I doubt they care. In all honesty, they end up in the same division, don't they?
I can't believe Leicester threw away their lead that they had, though. They had like nearly 20 points at one point.
Yeah, there was a funny spell towards the end of the season there where Leicester, Ipswich, and Leeds, like nobody wanted to go up. I think the biggest throwaway was Leeds, because a couple of the games at the end of the season where they lost to Blackburn at home and they lost 4-0 against QPR. They played themselves right out of the mix, because Ipswich and Leicester were both faltering, but Leeds just did not take advantage whatsoever.
So yeah, sorry to correct myself. Leicester won it with 1 game to spare, not in the last game of the season. Ipswich secured second place in the last game of the season. It doesn't look like it because they finished 6 points ahead of Leeds. The goal difference was an important factor here, though, wasn't it? If Ipswich had lost and Leeds had won on the last day, I think it would have gone to Leeds because of Leeds' defence more than anything. But you're right, Leeds 3 defeats and 1 draw in their last 5 games probably will be ruin. I think they had the momentum at one point. It looked like the team coming forward. And if you go back a little bit further, Southampton had the momentum and looked like the team that were going to finish second, but they probably fell off even worse. They only actually ended up 3 points behind Leeds in the end.
Yeah,
but
they beat Leeds on the last game of the season, didn't they? That could have been a massive game
in the last 5.
Yeah, could have been. It's the playoff final now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Probably would have predicted that as the playoff final as well, to be fair. West Brom getting in do you know what? Fair play to them. I really did not expect. I think we predicted them just outside the playoffs in our pre-season, but after speaking to their fans earlier this year and seeing them play twice, we obviously lost away, but it was like 3-2, and I don't think they did anything special. And they were really average when they came down here. So to finish the season where they finished there, fair play to them. And they've really not got a big squad this year. They've struggled a bit with. They have to let a lot of players go. I think they got a bit of money trouble. So it's a good season for West Brom, even though they've not managed to win the playoffs.
Yeah, I had them down as 18th at the start of the season. I thought there was quite a bit of turmoil going on just outside locking in. They've significantly outperformed what I thought they were going to do. I mean, I like Corberan. I didn't dislike Corberan. I just thought it looked too messy. Like, I thought the wheels were going to eventually fall off for them. But they're one of those ones. They're always there or thereabouts, and they for playoffs, and they're never. Maybe stupid the prediction looking back. I'm not sure, but
it was mad. It was mad they got in there. I thought because even I think at the start of the season they didn't look like they were gonna do much today. I remember we went to West Brom away. Was it this season? I don't know. It seems like it was so.
Yeah, we should have got a point out of that game. Harry Darling was lethal from corners, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I thought I don't know. I didn't think much of them, and they didn't seem to and then all of a sudden they were. I don't know. They never seemed to pop up. But you think, oh, West Brom are in form,
They've just
or
been consistently
they
taking over.
yeah. They think, oh, they never get any big wins, and then, but they were just always kind of creeping up the table. Then they just seemed to just appear there, didn't they? For me, anyway.
Yeah.
They didn't seem to. I never thought, oh, they've had a big win there, or they've had a really good win away from home there. They beat one of the big boys or something. They just, yeah, like you said, quietly consistent.
And then Norwich finished the playoffs, as much as they had a good start to the season, highlighted by when we beat them earlier in the season at home. It was a big win for us at the time because of how well they were doing. Mid-season, they had a bit of a free fall and really looked like they played themselves out of any sort of playoff race. But they actually managed to recover quite well, got in there. But if you ask their fans, they weren't happy with it. There's more going on there. They're not happy with the manager. They're not happy with how they play. And I guess that mid-season patch where they really didn't perform, they probably can't. They haven't got over that and think they should have done a lot better. But he's been sacked now.
It was weird though, because you could argue all the playoff teams, all four of them that went in out of form, they were all not playing very well towards the end of the season. You know, Southampton lost a couple, even though they beat Leeds. Leeds were out of form because they played themselves out of the contention. Norwich didn't look that good going into the playoffs. I think we probably could have beaten them away as well. That was a good game when we drew 2-2 late on. They needed a win to kind of secure playoffs at the time.
Yeah, we took it to the last game.
Yeah, we could have nicked something there as well against Norwich. So they all kind of went in out of form, which was a bit weird.
Yeah, and Hull, who were chasing in 7th place, also out of form, missed opportunity for them as well, because they probably should have done better in their last couple of games and they would have got in.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go through all of the teams. The relegation fight as well was interesting and settled on the last day of the season. Obviously, Birmingham, Huddersfield and Rotherham went down. Rotherham confirmed a couple of weeks before. Huddersfield, Michael Duff has now gone there. Really, really poor end to the season. Obviously, they kind of you saw during the game that we played against them where they kind of set in what was going on. I think the penny dropped and they conceded a few more goals, didn't it, during the game? Bit of a tough one for them. Sheffield Wednesday, if their manager was there all season, you'd say he'd be in contention for manager of the year. But obviously, he wasn't there all season, and I think the right winner got it in the end. But their form since they changed the manager, they were gone. They were literally gone.
We all wrote them off, didn't we, on the pod? We said
worst start ever in the Championship. Yeah, we all wrote them off on the podcast. I think everyone wrote them off across football, probably. I think that is got to go down as one of the best escape jobs in history.
Yeah, they were gone because I don't know if you've seen it. I think I sent it to you, Luke, the other day, where it's like the table of all the clubs and like how they progress through the season, like up and down the table. And if you watch Sheffield Wednesday, they're literally bottom of the table all season, and then they just like kind of go like that at the end, just out. They were long gone, weren't they?
Their form at the end of the season was really good. They didn't lose a match in the last 5. I think that extends maybe further. We obviously had a tough time. We were lucky to get a point when we went up there. They really outplayed us, especially in the second half. And just credit to them. There was a period where they were just winning week in, week out, and the teams around them were just doing enough to keep them pulling out of the bottom 3. It was like they were stuck in 18th place. They'd get a win. The team above them would get a win, but someone else wouldn't. They dropped down to 21st. Sorry, 22nd, I meant, not 18th. I think in the Premier League. And that happened for weeks where they were just winning, could not get over the line to get a relegation, and they managed to get out of there just in time. Birmingham getting in, though. We obviously went to Luke Williams' first game in charge against Birmingham away. Tony Mowbray has also taken over, and we were disappointed not to win that game, although just from the fact that we were 2-1 up so late, I think Birmingham probably deserved a point. They probably should have been like 2-3-0 up by half-time. But I was shocked to see that he didn't manage to keep them up.
But he went on sick leave, didn't he?
Yeah, I think that they were unlucky with that in the season.
He's left now.
Because after Rooney was sacked, Mowbray came in, didn't he? And I think we can speculate, but they might have done a bit better. But then after that, he was ill, wasn't he? And he had to kind of give up for the rest of the season. Like you said, I saw today that he's left now permanently. So that's just like, and that was unlucky. I know they made the wrong decision, obviously, by getting rid of Eustace to bring Rooney in. But after they sacked him and brought Mowbray in, I think they might have sneaked up if that didn't happen to him.
And Plymouth, Sorry, go on, Ben.
I should say usually it's a steady ship if Mowbray's there. You don't really bank on Mowbray teams going down, do you?
No.
Yeah, they only went down by a point in the end as well, didn't they? So I think it could have been a difference changing the manager again.
That's unlucky. I hope Mowbray is okay. But Birmingham deserved to go down after that early season decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not the fans'
Absolutely.
fault, but
yeah.
Shocking decision, and I think they paid the price for it. Plymouth, Stephen Schumacher, I think as much as he got the criticism for leaving, done enough in the first half of the season to keep him up, because they just nothing after. I mean, to be fair, it wasn't just him that went. They lost quite a few key players. A lot of their good loan signings got recalled and sent elsewhere or sold. Yeah, they just scraped through to stay up, and I was a bit sad for them because I think they had such a good first half of the season. Everyone wanted a bit of it, and then they were just kind of torn apart from inside, and it just wasn't the same for them thereafter. And yeah, good for them to stay in the league.
Yeah, as you said, after Schumacher left, I think Plymouth's style of play literally consisted of pass it to Morgan Whittaker and hope he can dribble past three people, shoot from range and score for you. Like, they're so reliant on him for goal output. It's insane. And I'm glad they've stayed up from a Swansea perspective, because there's supposed to be a significant sell-on clause in his contract. There's interest in him this summer, possibly from Sporting. You could go for a 15-20 million pound fee. It's the same with a clause.
They're going to sell Gyökeres and buy Whittaker.
Our money this summer may not come from as much from player sales. We don't have that many assets at the minute. It could come from clauses in Morgan Whittaker and Joel Perreault's contracts for Leeds going up, maybe from the playoff final, and Whittaker again sold on.
I think in terms of assets, Nathan Wood is the one to look out for this year.
Yeah, well, this is the thing with Wood, though. Like, it's a year left in this deal, so he will go, I imagine. I can't see him staying on. But there's meant to be a big sell-on clause with Borough, like 35-40%, something in that region. So say now we get 5-6 mil for him, well, it's only really 3 and a bit million you're going to end up with. So it's not going to be substantial.
Okay, let's have a look at the players then. Here they are, all in their glory. Starting off with a good one. So we're going to rate them out of 10. Who wants to go first?
Go on, Lee, go first.
I'll be thrown right under the bus there, Lee. Andy Fisher. How are you going to rate Andy Fisher's season?
10.
I mean, look, you can speak about your rating a little bit more with the ones that perhaps have a bit more to say, but I guess when you're looking at the likes of Andy Fisher, I don't actually remember what he did this season. He probably played in some preseason friendlies and a cup game.
One cup game, probably.
Yeah, I can't remember him seeing him play, to be honest. So he gets 10 for me. Didn't do anything wrong.
Okay, I'll 10 into the.
Yeah, I'll just brush over, and I don't know if it's even worth giving player ratings if they've only played like a game.
Yeah.
No, I just chucked them all in a spreadsheet. But if he's only had one, we'll say NA.
Yeah.
We'll just say on the bench, just left back in the changing rooms, whatever it is. Okay, let's move on to Carl Rushworth. Obviously on loan, but let's rate his season. So Lee, Carl Rushworth.
Can I give him? I don't know. Can I give him a 10? Yeah, I'm gonna give him a 10.
That's very generous.
No, let's go 9.5. Let's go 9.5.
No, we're not doing half measures.
We're doing 9 then. 9. I'll give him a 9.
Backtrack in the second.
He was very, very, very good this season, Rushworth. To be fair, like, saved us. Another reason why we probably stayed away from the relegation fight was some of the saves that he made in some games, especially. There were some games where we were hammered and he kept us in games, so I'll give him that. The only thing I used to criticise him on was his distribution until that ridiculous ball, the timing against Huddersfield.
Well, it took him a season to get there.
Yeah.
That's what loans for, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what he's here for.
And now
he's straight in the Brighton first team now.
I'm guessing he didn't get in the England squad. It was released today.
No,
I think I would have heard it.
They took Trafford as the fourth keeper, who was back up for Burnley, unfortunately, but that's provisional squad. It's going to be Ramsdale, Pickford, and
he was never going to go anyway, was he?
No.
I mean, Southgate put Luke Shaw in the squad, so can you actually even
I just realised because there was rumours about him being picked, wasn't there? And then I thought, he must not have, because I would have heard about it if he was in it today.
Okay, Ben.
I'll give him an 8. Player of the year by a country mile, I think. I'm not. The 8 isn't purely performance. If it was performance, I'd be going 10. But the reason I'm giving 8 is because I gave him a lower rating in the summer, which I won't disclose now. But basically, my reasoning in the summer was Stephen Bender was sold on. We're not going to have an adequate keeper come the summer after. Rushworth probably won't be able to be brought back in again. And now here we are. He's now a Premier League goalkeeper in my eyes. And we've got Andy Fisher as our only goalkeeper because Lewis Webb has now been released as well. And now we got to go out and get
I forgot Bender got sold.
Yeah. So now we got to go out and get a keeper in the summer. That suits this style of play, which is, we're the second most heavy possession team in the league. It's and also Rushworth is probably the best shot stopper we've had down here since Fabianski, I think.
Yeah.
Massive loss. 7 points above the relegation zone we finished. He was worth 10 this season, easily, maybe more.
Yeah.
He was the difference between relegation and survival. So, hell of a player. But now we got to try and replace him.
Yeah, I agree. I actually give him an 8 as well. Many similar reasons to what you said. The reason I didn't go for the score that Lee has provided him is because he did make some errors this season, which is to be expected. He's here on loan as a youngster. I'm not calling him out on it, but you've got to acknowledge that there were some clangers along the way. And that's why I think 8 is a fair result for his season. Very important player for us.
Harsh.
A significant impact on our season. But he also... It's not harsh because there were some games where we called him out because he was the reason we dropped points. So as much as I'm praising him,
we might. I think I agree with Ben. I think we would have gone down.
Ben gave him an 8 the same as me.
No, I know, but he was right because he pulled in about the Bender thing as well. That's big picture. So I agree with that. But in terms of performance on the pitch, like that,
I'm not criticizing him.
No, I know. I just think in terms of performance, I wouldn't dock him 2 points for a couple of mistakes compared to what he did do.
Well, I say it's docking him 1 point because 10 out of 10. Does anyone ever get to that level?
Well, I think I gave Bashir Humphreys 10 out of 10 last summer. So
yeah, and Andy Fisher.
Yeah, but that's rating a transfer rather than rating. Like a 10 out of 10, if you're going to rank someone after a season, they've had a flawless season. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's 10 out of 10. 9 out of 10, nearly flawless season. 8 out of 10, close to really, really, really good season. That's what I think he's had. He didn't have a nearly flawless season because he made errors that cost us goals and lost us games. As much as he made up for it in many more games, I think 8's a fair result.
I think we need half points for the scale, to be honest, Luke. I don't think 8, 9, 10 is doing it for me.
Yeah.
Well, look, you've got to put your money where the mouth is and put your neck on the line. And if you're listening on YouTube, everyone, I'm going to probably clip this out as a highlights video. So if you're watching in the podcast or you're watching on YouTube as a highlights, let us know in the comments your ratings and how wrong we are if you think we're wrong, and tell us how ridiculous our takes are if you think that's the case. So if you agree with us, then great. I hope you do. But that's the fun of these things, isn't it? It's all opinion and whatever. I just think, as much as he was our best player this season, I'm going to struggle to give anyone above an 8, to be honest, based on the season. So,
I think we've kind of touched it. We probably started the wrong way up because I don't think anybody's probably going to get more than Rushworth.
Well, like I said, player of the season, the goalkeeper's the first position on the pitch.
I'm just saying. No, I know. I'm just saying, like you say, you won't give anybody above an 8. I think you're probably right too if you're giving Rushworth an 8 because, like Ben said, he was comfortably player of the year.
Josh Key. Ben, you can go first.
Tough one to say because he was injured in the middle. I'll give him a 6. Solid. I think he gave a solid foundation to build on. I think he started better than he potentially finished after coming back from injury. But hopefully, when we have wingers on both sides of the pitch, he's building a good relationship with Ronald. I think he's a good player in there. Excited to see what he does, but I don't think you can give him more than a 6 personally.
Lee,
I was gonna say 7. I was impressed. I really impressed with him, especially in the early part of the season, and then towards the end of the season as well. I think he played well. Like goal he scored against Stoke at home, was it? That was brilliant. That was just come from nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
It was Stoke, wasn't it?
RKO out of nowhere.
Yeah. He just seemed to. He was the furthest player back on the pitch, and then he was all of a sudden he was the furthest man forward. But I think in terms of a signing as well, the fact that he's ours, great bit of business.
I also think 7, right? And I do, like, if he'd going to take any injury as a factor, I would say Ben probably spot on. But I'm trying to look at it with what I've seen them perform as, rather than like the fact that he wasn't there because of injuries. That's how I'm kind of looking at judging it. So from what I saw from him, especially the first half of the season, I think he was solid. For one, at one stage, he was on course for a shouting player of the year for me. At one stage, he kind of fell off that. And I think after he came back from his injury, his latest one, so the last few games of the season where he was involved with, I don't think he was at that level that he showed earlier this year, whether he struggled a little bit more to come back from this injury. However, yeah, the impact against Stoke there, that was a really good one. But I think he just struggled to get back into it. Those last couple of games, probably why I've knocked him down to a 7. But I think he's got to be one of the positives from last summer. And he was a free, wasn't he? So definitely someone to build on. And he's definitely going to excel, I think, the more that he's exposed to the first team.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, Christian Pedersen, now a difficult one. He played a couple of games, 4, but he did play in the big one, so I think it's worth talking about. He played in the Cardiff game, the first Cardiff game. So I'm going to say 4.
Yeah, 4.
Because he didn't do awful in all the games he played. I think you've got to factor in the fact that he was he brought in last summer, barely made an impact, and already been sent out on loan. You know, I know I'm not taking injury necessarily into the picture here, but you've already been shipped out, you know what I mean? So it's clearly not working somewhere there. I think out of his performances, I think he had 2 games that he actually did okay in, and 2 games that he probably should have done better in. And the fact that it hasn't worked out for him below a 5, I've gone for a 4. There's not really much to say, I think. He made a mistake against Cardiff and gave away a penalty as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I'd say a 4. I don't have much to add to it. I think if he's getting sent out on loan to a team in the relegation battle and was struggling to get a game, it probably says enough. Be a tough one. He's on decent wages to move on in the summer, unfortunately.
Yeah, Lee.
Yeah, 4. I don't think there's much you can really add on to that. We didn't see a whole lot of him. I do remember there was one game at home where I thought he played quite well. I was quite surprised. Yeah, it was Wednesday, was it? Yeah, I thought he looked decent, and then that was kind of it then, wasn't it? So yeah, there's not really much you can add to that.
What score did you say, sorry?
Yeah, 4 as well.
Okay. Ben Cabango, Lee?
I don't know, a bit of an indifferent one, because he seemed to have a lot more injuries this year than I can remember. He was kind of in and out for a bit, wasn't he? 5, maybe, middle of the road. He seemed to play right at the end of the season. I thought he like the tail end of the season when he came back from the latest injury. And
I was
he came
not
back
expecting that.
I just think it's just a bit of a, I don't know. I just try to go
That's
down
fine.
the middle.
It's your opinion. It's just what we're here for. If you're going 5, you're going 5. I'm putting it down.
Maybe 4 was high
No.
Pedersen for me if we're going that way. But I just think just average, nothing.
Change Pedersen if you want.
Middle of the road.
5 for Lee for Cabango. Ben?
I'm going to say 6. I think first half of the season, when we were more playing the back 3, he was struggling significantly. Towards the end of the season then, though, he formed a partnership with Harry Darlin in the back 4, and he was keeping Nathan Wood out of the team, and he looked a lot more formidable and comfortable in that shape. So I would say 6. It's a pretty standard season. He's one of those players, I think, go back to when he broke through under Steve Cooper. I thought he'd be in the Premier League by now. If I'm honest, it hasn't worked out that way, unfortunately. But as far as Championship centre-backs go, he's solid. I think he does get underrated at times. You just got to know how to use him.
I agree with a 6 for the way I've gone for 6 too, but just want to say, I know ratings don't mean anything on these websites, but on SofaScore, Ben Cabango is our 5th highest rated player. So what does that say about the rest of the scores that are coming? And maybe we have been a bit nice on Pedersen if that is the case, but we can revisit it if it's necessary.
Yeah, I think like tail end of the season, Cabango was great in that last section when he came back from his injuries with Darlin. I thought he was great. He was good.
Don't know, I haven't thought about this now we moved on to Cabango. I'm going to change my Pedersen to a 3. I think we have gone a bit high.
I'm going to stick with 4 just because from when he played, he wasn't that bad. Like you say, Wednesday at home. I know Wednesday were crap, but
I admire the fact that you haven't gone back on your word like I have. So I'm the problem here. But yeah,
I thought about it with just as my scale, because I got, if you like say 6 is average, I think like 5 is my middle of the road, which then makes my Pedersen one quite high. But
do you want to keep it or change it?
We move on. Pedersen doesn't need that much airtime.
I just said that in my microphone.
I hope he's not listening.
Harry Darlin then. For me, I'm going to say, from Torn, actually, I go 7. I'm going to go 7. I think he had a good season, but I do think he's got a moment in him of like, I don't want to say moment of madness, but sometimes he should be a bit more sensible or like switched on or not get involved in the gamesmanship as much in certain times. There was one recently, wasn't there, where I think it was Stoke actually, where for no reason off the ball, he just got involved in something. And sometimes it's good to have that. But I think there's a little bit of immaturity there sometimes. I also think he's a menace from corners, but he should be scoring more goals from them, from the opportunities that he gets. Something to work on. It's also a positive for him. But I think that's like for him to really nail his strengths. I think he can do more damage from corners. Like he's getting there. Sometimes the head is a little bit too like straight at the keeper, or he should be doing better to get on target. But he gets the opportunities that no one else gets by making a nuisance of himself in the box. I just think the next level for him is to be a little bit more clinical with his head on those opportunities.
Yeah, I'd agree with you with a 7. I think, like you say, he does have that moment in him, but this season I think there's been significant improvement from that side of his game. I'm nowhere near as worried about him in just one-on-one situations now. I think in terms of how formidable he is just defensively, which is obviously the priority. Yeah. As I said, the back, he's improved. And all I'd add with the attacking set pieces, I think we're not helped by the fact that we don't have much aerial prowess across the whole team. You got Cabango or Wood, but Wood doesn't really offer that much. But basically just Cabango to add to it. So then whoever's best at defending set pieces on the opposition, they're just stuck on Darling every game. They're not worried about anyone else apart from Darling in the box. That makes it more difficult then to present chances for him. But yeah, 7 out of 10. I hope he signs a new deal. He's got a year left on his deal now. He's, as I said, we're keeping Nathan Wood out the team, formed a good partnership with Cabango. And I don't think centre-back's an area of concern because of the pair of them.
Lee?
Yeah, I was going to say 7 as well. I think I agree with both of you on that one. I think he's had a nice season. I think he's kind of come on a bit again from the previous season. Well, no, I think like he was a bit, you could argue he was a bit, bit in and out in the first season. But I think this year, I think he's taken another step up again. And more so, like you're saying about the set pieces, I didn't really know he had that in him because this year, I think it was the West Brom game has started. I never seen him lose a header. When that ball goes in the box, from attacking set piece, if it goes to him, he's not losing that header.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I mean. I just think because he wins so many of them.
Yeah, but like Ben said, even if there's like 3 or 4 on him, he's winning that header.
Yeah.
I think,
and fair play to him. I'm not criticizing him, just in terms of like next level, right? How do you become like that centre back everyone wants? Is when a few more of them start going in as well.
Yeah,
because he's winning it. He's doing the hard bit, if you like. It's just that little bit extra with the accuracy, isn't it? But like, that's not a criticism because you take the goal as he scores already. But I just think there's more that you can find there. Anyway, Josh Tymon, I think one of the positive summer signings. I did call him out for his defensive work quite often earlier this season. I think maybe struggled at first, maybe like wing back, the tracking and stuff. But I think he adjusted to it a little bit better as time went on. I'm going to say 7 for Tymon as well.
Yeah, I'd say 7, and I feel like it could have even been higher, but as we're doing this as a season review, he was my scapegoat for the first half of the season. I'm willing to admit that. I didn't rate him at all. I was wondering why we'd spent $2.5 million on him when he had a year in his deal. Then Luke Williams
I think he was the only one.
Yeah, and then Luke Williams came in and he was allowed to actually play in his more natural position, in the more preferred way of playing, and all of a sudden he started shining. He's our best player on the pitch consistently, week in, week out, many of the weeks. I think he could well be player of the year next year when he has a full season in this system. I'm looking forward to seeing him do it.
Lee?
What did I give Key?
7.
Can't tell you that.
Well,
7. It was 7.
It was 7. For me, no, that works out. I'm maybe a bit too happy on this one, but I'm going to give him an 8 because I think
8. Well, to be fair, you gave Rushworth a 9, didn't you? So I
thought he was great. Like, so I know, like beginning of the season didn't quite work out when he came in, but that like since Luke Williams has come in, he's been an absolute breath of fresh air. And the fact that Tymon and Key are both ours, those two fullbacks, I think they could be dangerous with a full season. yeah, like you said, I think his defensive work, I think he was so much better as well later on in the season. There were times where I saw him put in some big defensive shifts and his wonderful effort as well. So I was really impressed with him in the end.
Right. We'll lump these in together. Not that there's much to say about them, but the situation around them, I think, is how we got to judge this one. Ogbeta and Choa-on.
Ogbeta, he played a few games for us in a few years.
I don't think he made a league appearance, did he?
I think he may have against Birmingham one time in the Russell Martin. He played in the playoff final against for Bolton. Bolton didn't go up, unfortunately for him. He was getting criticism in that game. I think there is a good player in there, maybe not good enough for this standard, but it'll be a lower end championship team, if not lower end championship team, a higher end League One side who scoop up on a free and say thank you very much. 23 years old, maybe didn't suit the style of play. Good player in there, he just needs a good amount of minutes, and unfortunately, it just never worked out for us. It's just another poor signing, a few £100,000 down the drain.
Yeah, but he looked good on TikTok. Oh, I didn't put Balassi on you. Should add him in. Anyway, I'm not going to rate them. I just wanted a view on it and show on the situation as well.
Just say about the Ogbeta one. No, it was just a really odd one because they put that like video out, didn't they? And then will Luke Williams come in, and then he was on the bench against Birmingham. We were like, oh, maybe he's gonna he's gonna have a bit of a part to play here under Luke Williams, and then he was gone the week after. So that was just it was a bit odd. But there's nothing more to add on Ogbeta really.
And Choa-on, sorry, this is just as we never get to speak about him. Has anyone got him on Instagram? Followed him on Instagram recently?
No.
Hold on, let me. Sorry. Just because this is a talking point, just in general, he now plays internationally. I'm going to check what national team is. I want to say Indonesia or something like that.
Well, has he done like Jamal Lowe went to Jamaica?
So, Choa-on.
Or Michael Chopra when he played for India.
Yeah, it's something like that. I'm pretty sure he has more Instagram followers than the Swans now.
Indonesia.
I think you might be right. Indonesia, yeah.
2 appearances.
And he has 2.1 million followers on Instagram now.
Wow.
Nathan Choa-on.
So basically, he's gone to an international football team who haven't got anyone with a name.
He's basically their best player.
Because he played in the Championship, and the Dutch First League, Eric de Vizy, they're like, oh my God, this is amazing.
The best comparison you can make in terms of the fandom for it is probably, I know, obviously, I'm not comparing the players or the quality of the nations, but like Son with Korea, or South Korea, excuse me. Like,
I guess it was like that when Key came here, though, wasn't it? Yeah. Like, there's a massive following for him. And they put the Swans on the airport, didn't they? Just because Key was here.
So, I don't know if there's a place to do a pre-season tour. Swans, maybe go there. You'll probably have quite a few fans.
Put him up front.
You see clubs doing that quite often, though, don't you? Buying a player from a certain place just to raise the profile of the club in that place.
Yeah, and hopefully he comes back and plays. Does anyone know if he played when he went out on loan? Because he did go out
4 times.
4 times. There we are. It's a lot of money, a mil we spent. You know what I mean? It is a lot of money.
Such a weird signing. I don't know. It's another one I just don't understand.
He made the bench enough to like think he must have had something, but he just never got.
Philip Lissa made it off the bench. You know what I mean? Like Philip Lissa made off the bench. He didn't.
Yeah, but Choa-on was getting on the bench ahead of Lissa when they were both there. Doesn't make sense, does it?
I don't know.
Same as Ogbeta, he was making it on the bench ahead of Lissa when they were both there. The reason Lissa was getting on the bench is because both of those two were not there anymore, and then Lissa was coming off the bench.
Yeah, you can't give either a rating, can you? But it's just, we'll see how that one plays out. It could be another loan.
Yeah. Nathan Wood.
I gave Darling a 7 and I gave Cabango a 6. I think he's being kept out of the team by both of them. He had a move to Southampton lined up, which is basically a halfway to the Premier League, and now he isn't getting regular minutes. I can't go above a 5 if I'm honest. Like at most it would have been a 6, but I'd say a 5. It's he did have an injury in the middle, which I know maybe being a bit harsh, but I feel like whereas Cabango, you could say he stayed where he was. Darling kicked on a bit. Wood for me went heavily backwards. So
I actually gave him a 5 as well, similar reasons, but I just thought he had a handful of good games. and he had a lot of games where he was just there, but they also had some stinkers. And some of the stinkers also seemed to revolve around the talks about him going to Southampton, or like were directly afterwards. So when we played them at home, I think he had a bad game. I don't know. Like I know he was out for a long time as well, so coming back from that injury might have been a bit tough. He just didn't kick on from where he was last season, and the reason why Southampton were interested in him, you didn't really see that this year.
Yeah, I was going to say 5 as well. I thought he was like that. The beginning of the season when the links were there, he was awful. He was absolutely terrible in the beginning of the season, and then the window shut and he got injured, didn't he? And then he was out for ages, and then he came back and he was okay. But
I think the fact that more than half the fan base was happy for him to have been sold, considering how generally we don't react favourably to selling assets.
Yeah, the thing that people didn't realise, though, was, I know we talked about it before, it was all this £10 million fee, but the offer on the table was £6 million plus £4 million in potential add-ons, presumably based upon promotion, which wouldn't have been activated unless they win the playoff final, as it's turned out. And then it's the fact they got the sale on clause. There was more to it than what the fans
you could argue a good decision, considering the playoff finals against Leeds. So, well, let's see if Leeds win. But
yeah.
It's a weird one with Wood though. Like I don't know if it's because like he's a young English player, but I don't see the massive hype. I think he's a decent player, but
yeah, the Arsenal links and stuff like that were having.
Yeah, I remember the Arsenal links came out, and then like you said, Southampton would have gone in, and it was basically he's not a Premier League player. No, maybe in the future, but
Ben Kabanga was getting links to Bayern Munich before, so like they just
England under 21 international, and they're always going to have extra hype there because of it.
Kyle Norton.
Go on, Lee, you go first.
I'll go 6 again, just because I know like we're not going to get many games out of him, but every time he comes in, I thought he was great again. That spell where he played quite a lot of games, didn't he, up until he got injured. He was great again, just absolutely solid in the way that we play as well. Just can't follow.
I liked the little announcement video of his extension where it was like you didn't think we were going to end it there, and it was like him getting injured against Cardiff.
Yeah,
but I agree, 6. I think look, he didn't have the biggest amount of game time and the biggest impact, but I think he did have a good big impact when Luke Williams came in, kind of helping him implement that way of playing when we were quite short at right back, and he slotted back into that role, which we haven't seen for a few years. People were questioning whether he had the legs for it, and he did a good job, to be fair. He did good, and he actually looked good going forward as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go 7, purely because we were having injuries at the back. I thought he'd contribute this season as like a backup right centre back in the back 3. He'd come off the bench for half hour here and there. He'd play in the cup where needed. I didn't think we'd have injuries to the point, I think it was Ashby and Key both got injured. We'd have injuries to the point where he'd be relied upon to play 3 games in a week as a starter, and he'd hold his own and manage the minutes, because eventually he did get injured, I know. But he didn't look out of place at all. I think before he got injured, he looked the fittest I'd seen him in years, I think. And he deserves the 1-year extension. I thought this would be his last year. Considering how little he played the previous season, I thought he may get 5 games this season. It'd be thanks for your service, but brilliant player.
Okay. Harrison Ashby. Now, part of the reason I think I changed Pedersen's to a 3, I'm going to give Ashby a 4 because I think he came with quite a bit of hype. He did not live up to that hype. Unfortunate with injuries as well, but he struggled quite a lot. He was keeping Key out of Key was playing left back early doors, wasn't he? And then it was like, how are we going to fit them both in? But Key just got the position because he was just doing better. And that's not what was expected when Ashby was signed. There was a lot of hype and fanfare around it. And I'm not saying he's bad. I think he did a decent job when he was on the pitch, but I don't think he did well enough, really. And the fact that he fizzled out of the season, I know he had, again, some injuries, but I think people kind of forgot about him towards the end.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I was really surprised he didn't get recalled, to be honest. I thought that was going to happen, but then he just seemed to stick around. I'm going 4 as well.
Yeah, I'll match you on 4. I was excited for it. Newcastle fans talking as if he could even stay around the Premier League squad as backup. Why is he only getting loaned to Swansea? That's a hell of a signing, everyone was saying. But didn't look comfortable, did he? I think he definitely needs another loan in the Championship. Maybe the style of play wasn't the most suitable, but then, I don't know. He didn't look comfortable, did he?
Pasha Humphreys, speaking of looking comfortable, I think looked okay until Luke Williams came in, and then a surprising come from Chelsea, but that is not the system for him. And we were desperate for a left-sided centre back. I think, there's the whole thing of Panzo going to Cardiff. We signed Humphreys. We were well happy with it. Got called up to the international squads of England, like really early in the season. I don't think he played, but he got called up to the training squad. I'm going to give him a 4 as well, because he gave me some proper anxiety in some of them games I watched him play under Luke Williams in them early fixtures. He obviously couldn't really get in the team afterwards. But Birmingham away, oh my God. Some of the balls and pressure he was put under and panic, it reminded me of Mark Geehee against Hull in his first game. But Geehee bounced back and improved. Pasha Humphreys didn't.
Yeah, I'm going 4 as well. I think he looked okay at the start of the season. Maybe when he first came in the first couple of games, he looked all right. But yeah, but I even think it started before Luke Williams came in. I went to Southampton on Boxing Day when we got destroyed. And I know we might have been playing a bit out of position, but he looked way out of his depth in that game. And then, like you said, in the games after Luke Williams came in, that was he just didn't look. It didn't look right at all. But he'll probably go on now and do something brilliant, and we'd be like, oh my God, he was rubbish for us. But not for me.
I'm going to go with 5. Obviously, gave him a 10 in terms of transfer rating in the summer. Hasn't transpired that way. I do think he's got a bit
that escalated.
Yeah, I think he's got a bit of Latter-Bordier syndrome about him. People remember his worst moments when he was playing out of position. He spent a little bit of time right back and left back. Not saying he looked particularly comfortable as centre back either, but I do think there were some games in there where he played in a back 3 or back 4. And when he was actually in his real position, we've had far worse centre backs than him over the years. I do believe that. I don't think he was helped by the fact he came with all that hype, similar to Ashby in a way. Far more was expected.
Probably, that's probably fair. Philip Nassar, we don't need to rate him. No. Sorry, did you have something to say there, Lee?
Well, it kind of feeds into Lissa, really. It was a bit annoying. I don't know what the agreements are, but to play Humphreys and Patino in the last game of the season was so frustrating. Why would we not play Lissa? Why would we not start Lissa against... I
guess it was just to say goodbye, wasn't it?
Yeah,
which is, I don't agree with it, but I guess that's the reason.
The point of a dead rubber game is to breed young players, really, isn't it?
I was so I was so upset when I saw the starting lineup and Patino and Humphreys are both in there. I wanted to see Lissa. I know the under 23s had a game to get into the playoffs, didn't they, at the end of the season? But then I'm sure he was banned. I'm sure I read that he had a suspension. So I don't know whether that carries into the first team as well. So maybe that's why he couldn't play. But when Patino in midfield, I've heard that from around Twitter and some people that I speak to have gone to some of the under 23 games. Apparently, Abdullahi is brilliant in midfield, where he prefers to play. Well, why not put him in there instead of Patino on that last game of the season?
Every time he's come on, he's been at wing back. He's been purely on the wing, higher up.
He was on the wing against Millwall when he came on for Ronald.
I'd be waiting to see a midfield 3 with him, Grimes, and someone else. To be honest with you,
bit dynamic, more dynamic in the middle of the pace, and I feel like maybe it could be like a Leroy Fer if he had the chance to prove himself, But Lissa was on the bench against Millwall, so I mean.
Oh well, there we go. Even more so, and that's why I'm a kind of bit bitter towards Humphreys as well. But it's a bit harsh. But I would have rather. No sense to me.
I would have rather Liam Walsh start over Charlie Patino if he's leaving. He's actually our player to say goodbye. Do you know what I mean? Not alone.
Playing lone players who haven't played because those two barely played towards the end of the season. To play those two at the end of the season in a dead rubber, that was tragic.
All you could think is there was maybe, like we said, we don't know if there was a clause each of them had to play a certain number of games, and
that was the one to tick it off. Yeah.
Okay,
we won't rate Lissar, but one to watch for next season potentially. I hope.
Didn't he win?
Maybe he'll go on loan, but I think he's got potential for someone that could break through in the next year or two.
Well, Humphreys goes back to Chelsea. Maybe Wood leaves. There's a gap there as an understudy. There's got to be. We'll need another centre back of some sort in as well. But I feel like we've got our 2 main starters.
Is he not a wing back? I thought he was a. He came in a right back before he came on.
Right back. I think if he plays centre back, it's better in the back three. Probably because he's 5'11", he's not the tallest, but yeah, can play centre back.
Fair enough. Yeah, one to watch on him.
Didn't he? Didn't he win Academy Player of the Year? I think Lister, didn't he?
I think I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah. By all accounts, he's supposed to be well liked. So watch his space.
Okay, so Jay Felton start midfield.
5.
Fair enough.
Just he went a bit backwards, didn't he? He had the scapegoat syndrome, and there were some games where everything was going wrong, the touch was off. I do feel it's, if there's a time to move on from him being a starter, it's now. If you want to make that break, clean cut, find someone else to partner Grimes. But I feel like there's still a place for him in the squad. I just don't want to rely on him as a starter anymore.
That's fair. Midfield's somewhere we're going to look at anyway, with Walsh going, Patino going. Allen's not reliable for enough games. So it does leave Grimes and Felton as the two. I feel like a couple of faces need to come in there, and you have to hope that if you're going to invest, the couple of faces that come in need to be good enough to improve the squad. And if Grimes is the captain, that is Felton, that is the one that's positions up for grabs, really. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'll give him a 6, though. I think I agree completely the scapegoat thing, and I think he deserves a bit of a better rating than what most will probably give him. I don't think it was fireworks, but I think he's been solid enough to get a 6. I think nothing special, but I also don't think nowhere near the bad that we see from people.
Yeah, I think this would be where like a 5.5 would come in, but on my scale, like 5 is average, just middle of the road. So like you said, I think you see some comments after some games saying that he's like a Sunday league player, and this has just went way overboard. But I think at this level, he's a solid option. I agree with what you said, Ben. Like I think if there's anybody else to come in to partner Grimes, I think we need to take that chance. But as an option, I think he's a great player to have in the squad in the Championship.
So what number are you going with?
5.
Okay. Joe Allen, I'm going to say 6 as well. Matching Felton for me. Less available, but when he was available, he put a good shift in, So I do think that's why he's ended up having an extension, because he's still got a lot to offer. He's got the experience as well. And he can be an important player when he's on the pitch, in terms of calming things down and dictating the tempo and all that sort of thing. So I can't give him higher because I don't think he's there enough to warrant it. But I do think when he is there, he is still a solid option. I don't think him and Felton are too different in terms of what they're offered in really at the moment.
Yeah, I'd also go 6. I think in terms of how we want to play, obviously controlling the tempo, controlling the rhythm, however you want to say it, of a game is crucial to that. And when he's in the team, we're able to do that. And when he's not there, I feel like you notice it. It's a very important part of how we want to build attacks, is just calmness on the ball. Also, in terms of how we win the ball back, he's very good at that as well. Unfortunately, you say same with him and Liam Walsh in midfield this season. Injuries galore. Glad he's here for a year extension, but can't be relied upon.
Lee?
Yeah, I'm going 6. I agree with what the pair of you have said, really. I think that, again, similar to Norton, when he came in, he had a spell under Williams where he played quite a lot and he was brilliant. Like, you just can't hide from the fact, similar to Norton, that he is a great player. The only issue is his fitness, because when he is fit and he's playing, he's brilliant, and you notice it when he's there. The team is completely different when he's in there, but it's just whether or not you can rely on him.
Matt Grimes. Lee, you can start this time.
I'll go 7. I think just yet again, it sounds like a negative thing, but you know what you're getting with Grimes, and you get it every year. But he just played every game of the season again. We'd be absolutely lost without him. Solid again. The only thing I would like to see is for him to have more goals in his game. I know he started taking penalties. I'd love to see him start scoring some more goals, because he's got it in him. But again, you can't fault him. Can't fault him again.
Ben?
I'd be going 8 out of 10 in a weird way, 8 out of 10, but quite possibly one of the worst seasons he's had, if not the worst. But how good is he if this is the worst season he's had in the Swan shirt? Honestly, it's just, I think not even just every game this season. I think he's played every minute this season. I don't know if he was one of only 2 outfield players to play every minute outfield this season in the championship altogether. I think he's probably only missed, I want to say, not even, I wouldn't even call it a handful of games in the last 5 years. How his injury record is just spectacular. And it's one of those ones we literally have no record of what we look like as a team without him there. I'd be scared of what we look like as a team without him there, particularly because of the way we play. If he got injured and we try and continue playing the way we do, I don't think we'd be capable of doing it. So I hope to God he stays fit again next season, because it's the difference between a comfortable season and just a wreckage.
I'm trying to find it now. There was somebody who tagged in on Twitter.
Lee's dropped out. He'll be back in now.
Yeah, that's all right. You can catch up with his scores if we crack on. There was something on Twitter about him the other day. If I can find it, I'll pull it up. But it was the consistent before. Here we are. For 3 of the past 5 seasons, Matt Grimes has played every championship minute for Swansea. One of 4 players to manage that just this season.
No, it's insane. It's like, obviously not even just injuries. When you think CDM is a position where you have to pull the last man back sometimes, how he hasn't got a red card in that time as well. The disciplinary record's exceptional. It's just, I'm glad that is it 3 years he's gone his deal now, or 2? It's not.
Well, he
one.
extended this season, didn't he?
Yeah,
so I can't remember when it was. 2. Probably another 2 years left, I'd imagine.
He's the sort of player, he draws parallels with Barry Bannon for Sheffield Wednesday. He could well still be here when he's 35, playing the majority of a game, if not all of a game, and just running the show for us, because his game isn't about pace. He's not going to lose his ability that makes him as good as he is, which is long-range passing, short-range passing.
Carl Rushworth was also another one of the 4 players that played every single minute this season.
So
2 of the 4 players in the league.
Our 2 most important players are the ones who played every single league minute. So thankfully it worked out that way.
The 2 that I've given an 8. So I agree with you on an 8. I think just one word, ever present, and I don't think he gets the appreciation sometimes that he should get. And it probably isn't his best season, but his standards are very high, and it's not his best season. It was also not Swansea's best season. I think they just go hand in hand, But he's still there all the time. He's ever present. That's why I want to use that word, I think, just to describe him. Plaheta, then. I mean, I wish we saw more of him. So I think I can't give him more than a 5, because he looked like he was going to come in and maybe give a bit more. Yeah, injury stunted that, and he's not staying on. I feel like it's a little bit harsh, because he did have a good impact.
I give him a 6.
I'm going to go 6. I was going to say I'm going to change, because I just feel like there was more there that we just didn't get, But what we did get also added a new dynamic to the way we were playing in those games where him and Ronald were able to go up the wing together. And there was some games that I think he was more of a threat than Ronald, and Ronald gets all applauded. So 6, I'll give him 6.
Yeah, I would have given him a 6. He was very one-footed on his left foot. The end product certainly wasn't there in the final third. He obviously didn't get a goal for us after having quite a few good opportunities. But what I would say is the second he did get injured and we were forced to play, say, Jamie Patterson on the left or Jamal Lowe on the left, who weren't maybe as natural in terms of their winger ability.
Yeah,
you noticed it, and we became a lot more reliant on just Ronald on the other flank, and maybe that's what stunted our progress in the last remaining few weeks of the season, because Plaheta wasn't there.
Yeah.
I'd say a 6.
Lee on Plaheta, welcome back.
Plaheta, 6. I quite liked him a lot, actually, but felt like we didn't get to see enough of him. I think he was unlucky with the injury late on in the season.
Exactly what I just said. As if you were listening.
But what we did see, I really liked. I'm quite gutted actually that he's not coming back, because I think there's a player there.
Yeah, that is a shame. Charlie Patino, I'm going 5. I just think a tale of 2 halves of the season. If he maintained the form he was doing the first half of the season, he would have got higher than a 5 for me. I still think it might be a bit high. Maybe I'm being generous, but didn't do anything after Christmas. Let's be totally honest. Barely played, barely kicked the ball. So having said that, I'm going to change my score to a 4.
I'd agree with your original score of 5 purely because I think when we were at the dross of the season, like the really poorest point in the Duff, which is for me the poorest point anyway, he was basically the only shining light. He's the only thing that I saw on the pitch that could have potentially been like creativity. I'm trying to base off the entire season, not just how the season ends, trying to remove that bias from it because, in my head earlier, Timon, he's ended brilliantly. If we're going to talk about it, ended, it could have been an 8 or 9. Then he had that first half of the season, which pulled him down. Patino, for me, like you said, after Christmas, did nothing.
But what's important for me is he even got dropped before Michael Duff left.
Yeah. But
so the dropping of him as a starter came before he got sacked. And the reason for that is, for me, and I haven't got stats behind this, but I feel like it's a good chance that he is the leader in this category and that is mistakes that led to a goal.
Could well be. I'm just trying to hit the good with the bad. I think I'm trying to be consistent. I gave Pedersen a 4. I don't feel like I can give Patino a 4 based on like.
See, that's why I changed Pedersen to a 3, lads. That's why I did it.
Yeah, I needed to write down my scale because like I think I gave Grimes a 7 and I gave Darling a 7, but I don't think Grimes is the same as Darling. But anyway, we just roll as we go along. But Patino, I want to say 4 just because of the hype and people telling me that he was the best player on earth at one point. So, but being like trying to be realistic, I think 5 is probably fair again, middle of the road. I saw some good things, but like you said, in the end of the season, my God, after Christmas, he just didn't look interested. I've never seen someone get moved off a ball so easily in midfield.
I have Ollie Cooper, but
we'll get to that.
But when to be fair, like that like you said, that time in the Duff, when he came on against West Brom away when we went up there, I thought, oh my God, we've got such a player here. He looked really good, and then just it didn't happen after that.
But when he came on in that game, we were chasing 3-0 down.
Yeah, but whether because there were links from there that he was going to be recalled and go to Juve, or I don't know whatever. But it just after that, there's nothing. Yeah, just nothing happened. And again, another one where he started him in the last game of the season.
Yeah. So 4 or 5?
5.
Okay. Liam Walsh, I'm saying 5. Again, I'm not accounting necessarily the time lost of injuries. That is obviously an impact on what we see of him. But what we did see of him, he can't start the games because of his injury issues. I think that was why he didn't start at the end of the season. But when he was in the team earlier in the season and they were starting him, like there was a reason why he got to that stage and they felt like they couldn't drop him. And that's why he ended up getting injured. But it's a season where he's played the most games for us as well. I just think he's just one that got away, like one of them players that's got so much talent we just couldn't tap into because of his injury history. And it's a massive shame. I'm going to miss him in terms of being in the squad. It's the right decision to not give him a new contract, but it's a shame. And 5, it's not a brilliant score anyway, but I just think he makes a good impact when he's on the pitch, and I can't give him lower just because he does have quality.
Yeah, I'd agree with 5. If you eliminate injuries and we're just looking pure technical ability, he's natural ability, he's probably our best player. No one's doubting that. I think everyone's excited to see him play when he does. I think whoever picks him up, I hope they just put him on a system of like strictly you can't play more than 75 minutes. You can't play more than 75 minutes a week, literally, because the championship we played him, was it 3 times in 8 days, 9 days at one point, which then led to him getting injured against West Brom. It's silly. It was foolish when you look at his injury record. Like, if you have him, you've got to appreciate the talent he is, but also manage his workload, because you'd rather have him once every 2-3 games than not have him for 4 months at a time.
Yeah, Lee.
Yeah, I'm going to say 5 as well, but real shame, because again, what we did see of him, especially this season, he was probably better this season. If we just look at the games on the pitch, he was probably better this season than other seasons. But yeah, and he scored a couple of goals this season as well, a screamer against Huddersfield.
Yeah.
There's definitely a player in there. It's just a real shame. I mean, if you had him fit for all season, he'd be you'd be talking about him in the in the 7s or the 8s. But yeah, real shame.
Ollie Cooper. Ben.
5. I think he's never really hit that same purple patch form he had under Russell Martin. I think he was legitimately getting Wales shouts at that moment in time. I think he's
kind of ruined him and not getting called up then.
I think he's improved in the last couple months or so, only as a squad player, though. I struggle to see a world where he like comes back in and like we rely on him as a starter. He's dispossessed too easily. It could even be a case of he needs a loan, but then I think the squad's probably too slim to justify sending him out as well.
That's going backwards though. He went to Newport, got into the first team on the back of that. So if I think alone, that's it.
I know, but sometimes you just take a step back to go forward again. He's not going to get a run of starts for us, is he? Is all I'm saying. So is he happy being a rotation player?
He has been phased in under Luke Williams a lot more than he was with Michael Duff. So I'm not saying he's going to get into the starting position. That's on him to show that he deserves it. But maybe a squad player is decent. He's a homegrown product. So
he's happy doing it. Yeah, he's under contract.
Not needing to buy
Yeah,
he's good to come in when we need him to come in. I said 5 as well. Lee,
people probably can disagree with me here, but I'm going 4. It's a bit of a dodgy one. I don't know whether it's just because of the drop off, like you said, because he was so good under a spell under Russell Martin compared to this year. But I don't know. We're in that position now where I don't think we can carry players, and I just don't. I hope I'm proved wrong, but I don't think he's good enough for this level.
I think next year is his make or break.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next 3, I don't think we'll rate them. Amir Govia, one that stepped in later in the season and started actually having a bit of game time off the bench. I think he's shown some promise. Another one to look out for next year. I mean, maybe he goes on loan, but any of these ones, I think there's potential of that happening just to get more game time. Sam Parker, probably one of the most burst onto the scene sort of players that we've had in recent years. Unfortunately, burst off the scene just as quickly with a season-ending injury, which was very unfortunate because he just came from nowhere, didn't he? Really, and all of a sudden just looked like trouble. He looked like someone that was gonna. He got a start really quick, and he impressed on that start. And I think he might have actually got injured on that start as well. But shame. But I'm hoping he can come in next year and actually pick up where he left off. And Cameron Congreve then is maybe the other end of the spectrum. I think Russell Martin introduced him to the first team squad too soon. And I think that's affected his development because he really has not looked like someone that's getting involved that much lately. So we're not going to rate them 3, but 3 of the youth team.
Am I right in saying that Parker refused to sign a new contract or they couldn't come to terms or something?
It's ongoing. He's 17. I think it's just he's not going to have a clue what's going on with any of that, is he?
Not him. I don't mean him personally.
Has he got an agent, or is it like his dad or something that's doing that?
I think they got to when they signed a professional deal. I don't know who they are.
Has he got 1 year left?
Yeah, I think so.
He had a couple of starts though. I think he started. I think the first one was Coventry away.
Yeah.
It was the one with the pass. He should have, buried the setter.
Yeah.
In the back post and
But he looks, considering he was meant to be a right wing back converted up forward, more to right winger. Promising. I just hope they can resolve the contract situation.
Be interested to see how it develops because obviously you wouldn't. I don't know if you'd start him ahead of Key if they were both fit. So it's how does that?
But they were starting him ahead of him, weren't they? In terms of well, you're not going to now because Ronaldo's there. So maybe there's less opportunities for him to come in now than when he did come in because Ronaldo wasn't there, and we probably needed that trickery and pace. We'll see how it goes, and then we'll see what happens in the summer and into next season. On the bench, coming off the bench, if we haven't got anyone there really, have we, to do that? So you could get some opportunities. Are we going to rank Abdullahi? Do we think he had enough game time this season?
He played enough to excite me. He's played enough for me to want him to have a little run in centre mid, to be honest. It don't seem to want to happen. I'd easily give him a 6 just because I feel like obviously the injury he had didn't help. It's quite a significant injury. Every time he played, I enjoyed what I was seeing. That's why I hope he gets some significant game time next season.
Fair enough, Lee.
Yeah, I was just going to say 5, just middle of the road for me, just because we haven't seen a great deal. But like Ben said, what I have seen is good. I said it earlier, I'd love to see him play midfield. I would love to have seen him play there instead of Patino last game of the season. But hopefully now going forward, you'll get some more game time in there.
I agree, 5. I think it's difficult to judge, but he's definitely positive. And
But again, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, we've mentioned a lot of youngsters in this end of season review. We were worried about who's going to be next, but there's a few opportunities for a few players that seem to be showing up all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, sorry, I didn't mean to butt in. I was just going to say, just kind of backing up my low Ollie Cooper scores. Like if we're looking at, we've got Joe Allen, Fulton, and they are potentially squad players, and then you've got Abdullah. I'd put Ollie Cooper bottom of that list at the moment, so that's why I kind of would rather see Abdullah in there.
Fair enough. I think it's harsh to lower Ollie Cooper than him when you haven't seen him in that position, but I understand why you'd want to see it. Because it could go bad. There might be a reason that he's not getting it, but we don't know.
It could go bad, but I mean, like, say we sign another midfielder now that's going to play alongside Grimes, and Fulton and Allen are the, kind of the squad players that are going to play in and out, then I'd rather see Abdullah then come in as another option, because he can also fill in a right back or whatever, rather than have someone like Ollie Cooper. But that's harsh. We'll see what happens.
Jerry Yates, Lee, you can start.
I don't know. I gave him a really low score in the transfer thing as well. It just didn't happen for me. I'm going to say 4. It's weird because he did actually score quite a lot of goals in that Duff period. But then, like, after that, I don't really know what happened. It looked like a player that was really, really short on confidence. He looked scared on the pitch. It was really weird. I was always hoping every week, like when you kind of saw him on the starting lineup, then I thought, I've been so harsh with him all season. I was like, I really hope he scores and gets confidence and starts scoring goals, but it just never came. I mean, he chipped in with, I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 in the run-in, didn't he? But yeah, I just never happened.
8 goals this season he had. Second top goal scorer, Jamal Lowe had 9.
Was it?
Yeah.
I thought they held the trophy together, saying they were joined.
The cup goals, is it?
Well,
no, it's championship goals. Didn't Jamal Lowe score?
I know they both shared the award. Maybe in the awards they just...
Yates scored in the cup though, didn't he?
So they counted FA Cup goals in the awards night for the Swans and stuff.
Yeah, but there were games there where Yates, where he he frightened me. And it was the Middlesbrough game where the ball came to him and he was like on his own and just completely messed up.
Yeah, he had so much time in the end. He thought about it for too long, didn't he?
Yeah, I gave him 5. All the same reasons Lee said, but I think he still chipped in with 8 goals. We expected 14 based on his Blackpool season as a benchmark. So obviously, he's not hitting that. Turbulent season, change of style. The form he showed under Duff, perhaps he was on target for 14, and it didn't quite work when it changed. It's got a massive confidence player for me. Probably never able to regain it. I think he started the season quite bright. I think he looked like someone who's working really hard and pressing really well, and maybe we lost those things through the season. So I think middle of the road 5 is fair. Not what we needed from the price we paid and what we went for, though. And I think 5 is still a bad score for him. But I don't quite think 4. I think 5 is fair because he did contribute still, like second highest goal scorer, or joint highest if you want to say, with the cup goal.
Ben? I think I'm going to have to go 4, unfortunately. And I'm trying to not focus so much on the goals. There were a lot of missed good opportunities, like a lot of one-on-ones or balls fizzed across the face of goal you didn't get on the end of. But I think a really important part of the way we play now, the striker needs to get involved in the play in order to break down defenses. And he has such a lack of amount of touches on the ball. It's frightening in games. You forget he's there sometimes. So yeah, I think for all the world, he could move this summer. He probably will. Maybe it's only on loan. You'll go to a club that suits his style of play, his ability more. He could bag 15 again. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think there is a player in there, but like Lee said, he's so low on confidence. As a striker, you sometimes just need a new set of surroundings when that happens.
Okay, Jamal Lowe, I've gone for 6 because I think he's just sort of like, he's squad player now, really, isn't he? Or he was by the end. And I think he just had an okay season. I never really got carried away when people were saying he was very good early season. I thought he was average, thought he should be doing more. And I think he's shown some glimpses of that more in the later half of the season. There's a couple of goals, one against Ipswich, I think the one against Cardiff, and there was one more as well, where he can show his individual brilliance, show what he can do. I just think he should show that more often, and I wish that he did. I think 6 out of 10 is a fair season for Jamal Lowe.
Yeah, I'd agree 6. I think he's probably an individual brilliant sort of player. He maybe didn't suit the style of play perfectly, but he would just pop up with the odd moment here and there where he just skin a few players on his own. We don't really have a lot of that in the squad, so you were grateful for having him there. Doubt he'll come back because of his wages, but grateful he was here.
I don't really want him back, I'll be honest. I think we go somewhere else.
I don't know. I quite liked him towards the end of the season. I think we found the best use for him. I'm saying 6 as well, by the way. But when he was coming off the bench, he always did something. He always looked like he kind of raised the game a bit when he came on. I quite liked it. A couple of times, like the Cardiff game, for example, that was brilliant. And he did the same against Stoke as well, didn't he? When he skinned someone and then led to the key goal. So he looked like he was better coming off the bench than starting towards the end of the season. I think he played well, but I'm with you. I wouldn't. It's probably not worth getting him back just for that.
I just think if you're bringing him back, you're bringing him back to do an okay job,
Yeah.
And I don't think I think he's somewhere in between a winger and a striker. I think Luke Williams wants wingers and he wants a striker. So yeah, Jamal Lowe was filling the gap because Placheta was injured, but he still want to start him when Placheta was injured. Really, not very often, So there you got him getting some good moments out of that, but like, I don't think it's what he wanted to play like. He wanted another Ronaldo on the other wing. He wasn't able to have that with what he had available to him. And I think if they go out and get a new player, don't put the wages into that person that's not giving you what you want. There's a reason why he left as soon as Martin came in.
Yeah, I thought. I thought he had some really good performances off the bench at the end of the season. But like you said, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
You don't go looking for a player where you can say, right, he's going to be good off the bench, dude. That's not. That's not what you want.
What did you say, Ben? Sorry, 6 was
6, yeah.
Okay. Josh Gianelli, hard one. He did play like 8 games for us, and he scored probably goal of the season, actually. Was it goal of the season?
Yeah, he did win goal of the season. Yeah.
That was a quality finish. I was one of them. I was there for that goal.
Yeah.
But I've ranked him a 5 just because I think he showed what he can give. Hard to judge his season based on what we saw, So I'm just saying middle of the road because, like, it's hard to go either way, really. I know I was saying not to take injuries in, but the fact that it was like 8 games and they ended in like September, really difficult to judge.
Yeah, similar one to Liam Walsh in there. From what I saw of him when he played, I liked what I saw. I'm excited if he can stay fit next season, but yeah, it's hard to give him more than a 5 when he only played a handful of games.
Lee?
Yeah, I agree with you. You 2-5 is probably fair. Like it was frustrating because it seemed like he probably started to come into his own when he was started. When he got injured, he looked like he was looking quite sharp, and then
he should do well next year.
Yeah, but the thing is, he was late coming in as well, wasn't he? Because he was injured in pre-season, wasn't he? He had no pre-season, and then he slowly came in and he was looking good, and then he got a bad injury then. So hopefully, if he can be fit for pre-season now, full pre-season and start the season strong, so that might be good, especially with the way we play now with wingers.
Yeah, Jamie Patterson. I mentioned he wasn't maybe expecting to be here this season. It looked like he might have been going in the summer. There's links, but there's always links. There's talk now. But I give him a 7. I think he had a good impact. He didn't quite perhaps get to the levels he showed when he first joined, but he was as close as he could be. He's obviously getting on in age as well. So, but yeah, I think, he was one of our best creative outlets this season. I think we need more than what he offered in reality to get us going where we need to be. But in terms of what we had, he was the best for a lot of it. So I think 7.
Yeah, I'd say 7. I haven't really got anything to add to that, to be honest. I think he was a bit of a bright spark when we needed him. Hopefully he sticks around. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to change my Grimes to 8 because my scale is off. But
Okay,
I'm saying 7 as well for Patterson because again in spells and in games I think he was probably our most creative. I think I will remember this season when he scored that goal at Leeds where he chipped the keeper. It was a lovely goal that was. He's always got that. He's always got that in him, hasn't he? He's always got a moment that he could do something like that.
Lee, do you want to start us off on Kuherovic?
Wow. We haven't scored anyone lower than a 4, have we?
I got Pedersen as a 3. You haven't, though.
It's hard to say because if we're marking his performances, what we've seen of him on the pitch was okay. He scored against Millwall, but we just
you
didn't.
Can take the situation into account as well.
Yeah, if we're taking the situation into account, then it's got to be a 3 because I don't know what the hell is going on. Because some parts of the season, with the way that we play, teams are banked backwards. We're just chucking crosses into the box, waiting for Cullen to do something. Who's short on it, and then you got him sitting on the bench or not sitting on the bench for the rest of the season. So I don't know. This is a massive question mark for me because I don't know what the hell is going on.
Yeah, I got 2 for the same reasons.
How true they are, I'm not sure, but I heard a little rumour that there's some sort of clause with Troy, the club we bought him from, and number of minutes or starts or something he has. If it goes above a certain threshold, we'd have to pay them more. He didn't start a single game for us this season, I'm right in saying. I think even against Northampton, I believe it was Northampton in the Cup.
What's the point of signing someone to then avoid paying a clause that you decided to sign in for?
If it's true. But then moving on to the rating, I feel bad for him. Didn't start a single game. The only thing you'd say is, unless there's that clause thing is true, there's 3 managers, nobody decided to give him a start.
Yeah.
I kept coming back to the bench though, so I do think there's perhaps more evidence this clause thing might be a thing. But for me, what is weird is for Luke Williams to reintroduce him to the bench in the last few games of the season with no interest of putting him on a pitch.
No.
Why then? Why? Just put someone else there. Put Kyle Wilson on the bench or something.
Yeah. I give him a 4 purely because when he did play, I don't think he did anything massively wrong. He was always chucked on when we were losing and playing badly. I feel like
he scored a goal, didn't he, as well?
And I feel like every single time. Okay, that was the one exception when we were winning at Millwall and he came on and he actually did score. But like Lee said, I think I did just see a stat in the last 13 games of the season. We chucked in the most. It was either the first or second most crosses into the box in the league. And he can't get on the pitch. And we're expecting Cullen, who hasn't got the widest of frames or tallest or whatever. He's not a target man, is he? Got one sitting on the bench. He can't get on the pitch. It's baffling. But I'll give him a 4 just because I don't think
Williams. 4's decent. Luke Williams alluded to a situation that happened before he joined, didn't he? When he was addressed on the situation. Yeah. So maybe it is something to do with what you mentioned, Ben. And I'm wondering, maybe he threw his toys out the pram a little bit around that. Maybe he asked the question, well, why did you sign me then? Why did you sign me if you don't want to play me because of this reason? I think that's fair if that's the case. Yeah. Obviously, it's all speculation. I give him a 2, and I don't give him a 2 based on the guy. I feel sorry for him. I wanted to see more of him. For me, this ranking is based on what's going on. What are you doing? Why have you, and the money. And he might be worth that money. We just have no idea. No idea.
I think as well, he did have the injury, so maybe he would have played it a little bit in that spell, who knows. But Jamal Lowe's gone. Jerry Yates, I think, would be the more likely person to leave because he seems incredibly unhappy and he's got a previous record of doing well, so he's easier to move on. You're just left with Kutarevich and Cullen, who we'll get to in a second. And in terms of number 9s, there'll be a need to bring another striker in, but maybe there's more of a chance of him getting a look in next season. We'll have to wait and see.
Depends how many bridges are burned, doesn't it? I don't know we don't know the ins and outs, and we'll see. Cullen then
6, I would say. The standard. I don't think he's. I've said this with Cullen all along. I like him as a rotation player, a squad player, which he's been for me this season, and he's done a good job at it. He's not the sort of one you'd rely on to get you 15 to 20 goals in a year, personally. But we activated a 1-year clause in his contract. I feel like that's justified. Hopefully, he does enough next season to deserve a proper contract. I think the clause we've activated is just to keep him on a lower wage that he was originally on from the academy, rather than giving him a bigger deal. But he deserves to still be here. I think he runs himself into the ground for the club. He loves the club.
I give him a 7 for all the same reasons, and I think that one of the ones that head's not really dropped all year, and he still tried to the end. Every single match he's there. I think I want to give him a bit of credit for that.
Yeah, I'm going 7 as well. I think he's had a good season in terms of he's been in and out and change of managers and everything, and I think he kind of held his own sort of towards the end of the season. Goal against Cardiff, he chipped in with a couple of goals. I think he's a very good, like Ben said, I think he's a very good like support player. The best I saw him was when him and Perot had a partnership together. There was a spell there where those two were together, and I thought he was brilliant. As a kind of a support player, because of like his, he's got very good movement. He's quite nippy off the mark. He has got a good finish in him, but you can't rely on him as your out and out 9. So if you add someone with him, I think he's very good in that role.
Duff was getting something out of him on the wing, wasn't he? Like maybe he was starting quite frequently there until I can't remember if he got injured or something happened when he wasn't able to start. And yeah, but now he's kind of used up front. He's been a bit everywhere this season, but I think he's done a good job wherever he's been placed.
Yeah, I like number 10 as well, mind. When he finds the pocket of space, he just gets on the back foot straight away, turns his man, plays it forward. He does the simple thing well. And when he'll
have a shot as well.
If you have wingers either side of him, though, if you have Blahet's equivalent come in, maybe it's Janelli at left wing and Ronald on the right, you just have runners. That's all you're asked. That's all we need from a number 10 in that instance. And he does that probably better than Patterson, I would say, weirdly. Patterson will probably spend a bit more time on the ball before releasing it. Cullen just gets out of his feet, play, go.
I don't think we can rank Charles Sago Jr. on loan from Arsenal. I think I saw him kick a ball once.
This is the problem. Like, what are these signings? I mean, one in a season maybe, but when you're looking at like Choa Kuharovic and Charles Sagoa Jr.
I think he was a signing of desperation when it was a last-minute decision from Luke Williams. I'm going to stick to 4-3-3 rather than... He started with a 5, didn't he, when he first came in? We've got some pound-ins, like Bournemouth, for example, in the Cup. And then I think transfer window was coming to the end. We hadn't really made any signings, and it was a case of like, I'm going to go with wingers. I need wingers. And they brought 3 wingers in, and it probably wasn't that much options. One of them, I think, is considered really good. Second one, low risk and unfortunately not staying on. Placheta. And this one was just kind of like, just didn't work, was kind of there because you needed more depth in that position, but ends up that you can use Lowe and Cooper and Patterson there anyway. So yeah, didn't really see him.
I'd beg the question, why were we bringing him in instead of just using Kyrell Wilson? I know Sago Jr. didn't get on the pitch anyway, but Wilson's quite highly rated from what I know. Yeah. So it's weird that he's not back to just fill on the bench in moments of injuries.
Yeah, I don't know. He was scoring loads of goals when he was that American that came in as well earlier this season. They were both banging him in together, and neither of them could get on. I don't know. Some of the decisions for some of these things is beyond me. But I think he did get on the pitch once or twice, Charles Sago Jr., but just fit like at the end of the games when it fizzled out. Didn't really have the opportunity to show anything.
He knew it wasn't right because they were playing. They obviously, which I like, they were obviously playing Govea at the end of the season, didn't they? And he wasn't getting on the bench.
Well, that's another one. If you all of a sudden, but to be fair, right?
I'm happy with that. I'd rather play I'd rather play our players than play these loan players. But it's just such a weird sign.
But this is what I mean. I think he was there because they thought they had to get someone. Yeah. In regards to Govea then coming in ahead of him, Luke Williams obviously was recent himself and probably hadn't identified.
Yeah.
From the youth team, which ones he thought he could work with when Sago Jr. was brought in.
That's fair.
That's probably what happened there, I think. And after a bit more time at the club, a bit more time seeing the youngsters, he obviously saw something there that he thought perhaps was a bit more beneficial.
Do we want to do Balassi now so we can end on a high with the last?
Yeah, Balassi is the last one I've got here. So let's. There's Ronald as well. Sorry,
I was just going to say we could end on a high with Ronald rather than.
Okay, let's do Balassi then. Let's do Balassi. I've put 4 because I thought one game of magic and hype and excitement, and then anticlimactic every time afterwards he touched the ball.
Yeah, I think he looked really fit in the last game just before he left, actually, which was a bit ironic and annoying because I felt we'd done a job of building him up to fitness and then letting him go. But yeah, I'd say 4 as well. I know this has nothing to do with him, but it just summarised how poor the whole summer window was when we let Whittaker go, who had 2 years in his deal for $1 million, to then 2 months later bring Balassi in on a short-term contract. Whittaker now is getting, he's obviously second top goal scorer in the league, or third, for a team that finished 21st, so just avoided relegation. Now he'll get a £20 million move. Yeah, it sums it up, really. But Balassi, just, he was a bit of fun, wasn't he? But it was always going to be an odd one. It never looked right, did it?
I know.
Yeah, I'll have to go 4 as well. I think you summed it up there. It was a bit of fun. I remember like Southampton away with like 5-0 down and just 20 minutes of singing the Yannick Bolasie song.
He got to get a point just for the song, didn't he?
Yeah, but was it the first game he played? He come off the bench and he
was class.
He hit one from miles out, I think, and it just went over the bar. The keeper's like,
yeah, on an half volley.
He could
Yeah,
have
If that
had
had
3.
gone in, it would have been limbs.
yeah,
You're right. I think like he wasn't here long enough to like get up to steam really, and that would have impacted his performances. Wrong time of the season to come in and have a preseason while you're playing matches, but like that's what happened. So that's what we got to judge. Ronaldo, then, do you know what? Like maybe people say this is harsh. I've gone 7 because he did excite. He was a really good signing, massive potential going forward, and I hope he can continue to get better. But there was also a lot of games that he didn't do enough, and he was getting dispossessed and losing the ball and was quiet. And 7's a good score. He was only here for half the season, and I think he was 50-50 in regards to what sort of performance he was going to give. So I've gone for 7.
Yeah, I'd agree with 7. I think he's probably our most exciting player now, which you love. I think the fan base probably forgot what a winger looked like until they saw Ronaldo again. But yeah, the end product, I hope it does improve a bit next season, because there's been quite a few instances where he does the hard work of beating one, maybe even 2 of his men down the wing, and then the ball into the box isn't of the same quality.
A bit like Montero.
Yeah, but no, really exciting player, and also brilliant engine on him for a winger. One thing probably people don't notice as much, the amount of runs he makes in behind, and the players in midfield don't often find him. Good engine on him, and as a winger, that's invaluable in the Championship because a lot of people burn out.
Yeah, I was going to go 7 as well. I think that's fair. I think as well, like when he came in, he was kind of a lift that everybody needed. Like when he came in and he kind of started to excite the fan base, I think it just lifted the whole club at the time as well. And then when he scored the 2 goals against Sunderland away, when he was still relatively unknown, wasn't he? And he did the Ronaldo celebration. I think it was a very, very good feeling around the club at that moment. I don't know whether he got like, I don't want to say he got found out a little bit. I think it was partly because of like the injuries on the other side that we relied on him a lot, and he was getting a lot of, we were expecting a whole lot from him going down that side, and I think, like you said, he worked so hard. So I think if we have another winger on the other side, consistently to kind of take a bit of the burden, I think he's going to be dangerous next season.
Yeah, definitely. I think he's definitely a good signing, and it's one the club. They needed something like that, just to
Massively.
say, look, we know it's going to take time, but the system hopefully is going in the right direction. We'll see this summer if that continues. They've had more time now to look at the targets and do this data approach. Maybe he was the first product of it work into his full potential, and considering he was 3rd choice, from what they said anyway, I'd like to know who the other 2 were that were before him. Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, we'll never know. What I would say is I think we'll probably have a list of 10 players for each position. So 3rd or 2nd or whatever was on the list. That's probably better than normal. We probably normally end up with 6th, 7th, 8th choice. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, and apparently Luke Williams saw a video of him, just like, yeah, get him. Like one video. So yeah, okay. So that's the rankings done. I'll have to make a little graphic and put it out somewhere, and see what people think about our scores and if they think we're idiots. So agree with us. So thank you both for joining in with that. We were going to look at a couple of other things. I think we touched on some of it already with the contracts with Norton and Joe Allen, the retained list. We've talked about Walsh is going, Placheta's going, Ogbetta's going. But I don't think we'll go into any more detail. I did say at the start we'll look at some transfers that we potentially could look at as well. But I think we've dragged on a little bit too long. We'll move that to another episode in the summer. Plenty of things to talk about, plenty of time to do it. So I think that's a good place to end the video. It's been a long one, which is fair. It's the end of season review. I think that's to be expected. So thanks to anyone that did get this far. Thanks for Ben and Lee for all their contributions this year, and anyone else that's been part of the channel. And I hope to see you both, I'm sure we'll see you in videos to come. I thought you two were going to say
I was, yeah, I know, I wasn't sure.
And I was interested in you both saying
season.
thanks for coming on the video.
I don't know.
But,
You signed it off
Awkward's
nicely.
just
I thought you
tied
were
me
gonna
off. I'll have to go and edit this now because I cannot upload that awkward silence. But,
No, I was going to say
Oh.
something, but you signed it off. So I thought you were going to end it.
I was saying thanks to you two. That's what I was saying.
And thank you to Luke for being a brilliant host for the entire year. There we are.
There we go. Keep that in.
Thanks, appreciate that. But yeah, awkward silence. But yeah, cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for listening. Don't forget to get involved in the comments if you're on YouTube. Let us know your rankings. Let us know everything we discussed. What's your season review? If you're on Spotify, you can also get involved by giving us a rating. Really appreciate that. It helps us with visibility for more people to find us and get involved in the community and get involved in the discussion. And we're most active on Twitter if you want to talk to us there. Long summer ahead of us to discuss the plans and the club and the direction we're going in. So let's engage in some chat about it all. And we shall catch you in the next video where we discuss some other stuff, I guess, in the summer. So thanks again and catch you in the next one.
See you soon.